Tips in when I send it to Itir and Isha Kanugu Kemet. I hope you're doing well. Let me check the sound first of all. Sounds good. Made a little mistake because it said that the live stream will be in an hour from now, actually. However, for those who have seen the notification on Twitter and on the YouTube community, put the message about 15 minutes ago and I wrote join me in 15 minutes. So here we are. We have 4 people online right now, 5 now. I want to share this video with you from our brother Chris on his YouTube channel, Chris MVP Harris. I'm going to share the link. Actually, I'm going to put the title and the link. And I will play this excerpt. So I've shared the link in the chat. Chris Harris calls Ishmael Bey on the phone discussing the urban Indian heritage BS. I put BS. It's another word that is in the title. We have 6 people online. How many likes do we have? 1 like only? Okay, I'm gonna wait for some likes before I play this stuff, because that's a bad look for real. That's a bad look, man. I can do this tomorrow or some other day, you know. There's still 1 like. Okay, 2 likes. Can we do more than that? We have 6 people watching now. Can we have more than 2 likes? It's not too much to ask. Yeah, people will tell you that you are marked in this figure and that you are marked in this figure and that your physical appearance is the essence of ugliness, and you clap for them and you send them money and you defend them all day, every day. For strange reason, okay, 3 likes, that's better. Okay, I'm going to deal with that. Thank you for whoever put the 3 likes. We have 7 people watching. I mean, I don't know, some people, you know, they must like being disrespected and urinated on, you know, so just teach them that black means death and Africans are living a jungle life and they love you. Anyway, it's not everybody, it's just some people. So I've shared a link in the chat. Now let me just play the excerpt that I want you to hear.
Let's call back. Let's call back. I'm gonna leave a message this time. I'm gonna leave a message this time. Hey, how you doing? I'm
doing well.
Is this Ishmael Bey I'm speaking with?
Yes, this is he.
Hey, Ishmael Bey, how you doing? I'm looking at your website here on the Urban Indian Society for legislation here in your petition.
Yes, sir.
Hey, I would like to know, I'm looking at it here and it's got some interesting things in here. And I saw your sister Phoenix Moon Rising last night. And I just wanted to ask a couple of questions to you, if I may, before I make a donation to you all or sign the petition. Is that okay?
Yeah, are you from an organization or are you just a viewer, like a viewer?
Well, I'm a viewer and I read your petition and I found it very I found it real excellent. I thought it was excellently put together. You wrote it as of September 18th and it was a 5-minute read. Like you said, it has some good information in it.
Understood. Yes, sir.
Yes.
Well, what kind of questions did you answer?
Well, the question I have for you is, what was the name of the tribe that we came from? Because I've always wondered, like, were we actually Africans?
Okay, very legitimate question. What you'd have to do is identify your own specific lineage. You know, by you checking your own bloodline, that would identify what lineage you come from. It may not be tied to America at all. You know, it may be from Africa, it may be from South America. You know, it's up to your specific lineage. So there isn't a set one bloodline that's going to identify. It's each individual. We encourage each individual to check their own family history, sir.
Okay, so once we check our family history, and what if it says that we're from Africa? Unfortunately.
No, it's not unfortunate at all. If that's where your lineage comes from, then that's the beauty of you finding or identifying where you come from. That's a good thing. That's not a bad thing.
Okay, no, I mean I agree that it's a good thing, but right, because I noticed that I know your last name is Bay and all that, and that's of Moorish descent. That's not neither here nor there. That's irrelevant here. But I was just trying to figure out here what tribe would most Africans in this country what tribe would we mainly come from? I just want to do a little bit more research here because I would like to make a donation. I always donate.
Well, yeah, I mean, donation aside, again, most Africans. What do you mean by what are you defining as what's an African?
The enslaved individual, the people that came off those boats. The people when we came off those boats, because there is a lot of. I'm not trying to ask too many questions because I don't want you to get nervous or anything like that. I'm not cut like that.
I'm not nervous at all. I'm just
okay.
trying to specify what you mean when you say most Africans. Number one,
our classification over here in the United States is African. We're African Americans.
Okay. There was a large majority of people that were enslaved that were not from Africa.
I agree.
They enslaved the indigenous population at a very, very high amount of numbers. So the Indian slave trade does not, I mean, like slavery is not synonymous with Africa. So you can be enslaved and still be American Indians.
Okay, so how do we go about proving that we're American Indians? How would we do that? You say go into our genealogy,
Yes, that would be by checking if you have any land records, if you have birth records, wedding records, death certificates, etc.
But wouldn't our birth records and our wedding certificates, land records all trace us right here in the United States since we've been over here for some 500, 600 years?
That's what you would study to identify your indigenous lineage.
That's a bit revisionist because the Africans were brought over here and we've been over here for 600 years. So that would by nature make the African indigenous to America now, right? He would, because he's been assimilated into American culture. I'm confused on what you're saying.
America's not 600 years old. Columbus was here 400 years ago.
Columbus was here 400 years ago?
Yes.
Okay, I can deal with that. 1600s, okay.
Right.
Okay, so we've been here for 400 years. Of course, essentially, we're going to find dealing with Africans who probably were freed over here in this country. Wouldn't you agree with that? That's not fair to say that. I don't want to get confused here, but it seems like the pot is being jumbled a bit.
Okay, understood. The African slave trade was banned after 1808. Did you happen to know that?
The African slave trade was banned in 1808. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, if the African slave trade was banned after 1808, how do you find your records of African?
Okay, so one more time, we're going into something here, and I think that's somewhat of a loaded question. If you're saying we're, I'm sorry here because I want to get back on point. You're asking, how do we find our record? There were slaves. The slave ships have the records. You can go all over. You can individually search out the slave ships and see all the slaves that came off those boats. It's just that simple.
Agreed. And there's 93,000 records. Exactly.
Okay.
That's what they say.
So wait a minute, it's what they say, but now you're saying this is where I keep getting confused at here. You're saying that's what they say. So who's saying that we're at, when you say, because I'm looking here on your, I'm looking at it and you call yourself, we call ourselves you guys are saying the Urban Indian Heritage Society, and you're saying First Tribe. What was the name of that tribe?
My first tribe is Muskogee Creek Indian.
Muskogee Creek Indians?
Yes. That's my specific tribe. That's my lineage, Muskogee.
Okay, but the Muskogee Creek Indians, they had slaves.
Yes.
So do you descend from the Muskogee Creek Indians or from the slaves?
I have ancestry that were enslaved by the Muskogee Creek Indians.
So that would make you African because they enslaved Africans as part of the 5 civilized tribes.
I don't deny having any African in my bloodline at all. We don't deny that. I said there's a beauty in finding that. We don't deny that.
Okay, so why do we deny being African then, and we want to identify as being indigenous? Wouldn't that be traitorous to who we really are?
No, not at all.
Not at all?
Again,
so we're going to, hold on, brother. So you're telling me we have to identify with our captors and not who we were before we were in underneath the Muskogee Creek Indians at that?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. That's what you're saying.
Okay, so what I'm asking you here is, you're saying that you want to identify as the first tribe, and you said Creek Muskogee Indian. And then I told you, when I told you that the Muskogee Creek Indians actually had slaves, you said up there and said, yes, you know.
No, sir. You're putting words in my mouth. You asked me what the definition of first tribe is.
Right, and you said you identify with Muskogee Creek Indian.
What I'm explaining to you is what the definition of first tribe means. First tribe means first contact. So that means that when the colonizer got here, they met a group of people. That's what first tribe means. First tribe means first contact, sir.
First contact? So who was the first person to come here and meet you all? I'm a bit confused because I'm trying to hone in. I'm trying to hone in on the Muskogee Creek here.
Okay, I'm trying to answer your question.
Okay.
The person that they met was DeSoto. DeSoto met those people who you would call the Muskogee Creek Indians.
Okay.
That's who we met.
Okay.
They also met ancestors which come from my Choctaw line. His name is Tuscaloosa.
Okay.
Tuscaloosa is recognized as a 7-foot tall Black person, and the word Tuscaloosa means Black warrior. These are the people that DeSoto met.
True. Okay.
So the bloodline descends from those first contact people.
So the first contact they made was, when you say Muskogee Creek, who were the Creek freedmen?
Those would be the people that were owned by the 5 civilized tribes, which is why we have them in the lawsuit.
Okay, so shouldn't I be identifying, because when you say Muskogee Creek, I'm following you 100%, Mr. Ishmael Bey.
Okay.
I'm following you 100%. Shouldn't I be identifying with the Creek freedmen and not the Muskogee Indian?
But it lists the freedmen on there. That's why we include them, because we're of that lineage.
Okay, so you're an African.
No, I'm not an African.
How can you identify with the Creek freedmen when they were Creeks of African descent who were slaves to the Muskogee Creek Indians? I'm confused.
Why are you yelling?
I'm not yelling. I'm talking to you with
the definition of freedmen is not synonymous with just African.
No, I didn't say it was. You're creating a red herring with that, sir.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. The Creek freedmen, they were of African descent, sir.
No, see, you just made it synonymous, and I'm saying that it's not.
Sir, Creek freedmen are synonymous with the Creeks of African descent. They were slaves of the Muskogee Creek Indians.
Although African freedmen are a part of what the definition of freedmen is.
African freedmen were in all the civilized tribes.
Again, the term freedman is not synonymous with African. You can be African and be a freedman.
No. You're changing you're trying to reframe what I'm saying here, Mr. Bay. Yes, you are. When you identify as a Muskogee Creek Indian, I can appreciate that, but they were African.
Okay. Then you have your definition of what a freedman is, and I know what a freedman is.
No, I said, sir, you identify as a Muskogee Creek freedman. That's what you identified it. Didn't you say Muskogee Creek Indian?
I said Muskogee Creek Indian. I didn't say freedman, but I said that there's a freedman lineage because the 5 civilized tribes owned slaves.
But I'm confused because you have the last name Bay, which is of Moorish descent, and then there were Muskogee Creek freedmen with them who were of African descent. You're trying to say that you identify not with the Africans, but of the Muskogee who enslaved the Africans. You don't see a problem with that?
No, I don't see a problem with that, sir.
Oh my God. Whenever you see, okay, let me ask you this. If I put a Muskogee Creek woman next to you, right? And I put an African woman next to you, who would you identify with?
I don't go with the lookership. I go with the lineage, sir.
You go with the lineage? So you would rather come from the Muskogee Creek and not the African woman who born you into this world. Are you serious?
No, I don't go with the lookership. I go with the lineage.
Your last name is Bay. I'm sorry. I'm just so confused here.
Okay. Well, again, I don't go with the lookership. I go with the lineage. I'm dealing with the lineage.
You're dealing with the lineage.
Yeah. If you're confused with that, then you need to get in tune with the lineage.
Okay. So your lineage comes from African, sir. Even with the Moorish last name.
Okay. But you don't know what my lineage is, so how can you tell me that?
Sir, because you identified as a Muskogee Creek. I'm pretty sure you look like me, Ishmael Bay, because I know you look. Will we agree with that? I'm 6'3.5". What's it called? You know, I'm a brother from Detroit.
And that's beauty in that, but I don't go with the lookership. I go with the lineage. I don't know what your lineage is, sir.
Lineage? But okay, listen to what I'm telling you. The Muskogee enslaved Africans. How is it that you jump over the African heritage and then go run to the identify as the Muskogee? I'm confused. Are you saying just through DNA? Because Phoenix Moon says she does not believe in DNA.
Okay. The Muskogee don't call themselves African, and I'm of Muskogee lineage.
But the Creek freedmen who were of the Muskogee Creek Indians, they are of African descent. This is historical.
Yes, there were some of them.
What do you mean there were some of them?
There were some of them, but the term freedman is not synonymous with African.
I did not say that the term freedman was synonymous with African. I'm not making that statement.
Right.
But you identified as a Muskogee Creek Indian. And first thing I said was the Muskogee Creeks enslaved Africans.
Yes, they did.
So you're identifying with the person that enslaved my ancestors.
Okay. Were your ancestors enslaved by Creek Indians?
My ancestors were enslaved by Creek Indians, Cherokee Indians, Iroquois Indians, white folks, Jews, Portuguese, you name it.
Okay, so if you were misclassified.
Oh, that's not what misclassified means, brother. You're wrong about that. The misclassification of the American Indian is simply dealing with the Indians who were taken off their land, and they were when the censuses were taking place from 1940 to 1960, they were never classified as American. They were classified as American citizens and not indigenous Americans. That's all that was.
Okay. If that's what your definition of misclassification is, I would say that you're misinformed.
Okay, can you give me a definition of misclassification, please?
Certainly, you can read it in the petition.
I can read it in the petition? Okay. So,
absolutely, it gives you the definition of what misclassified is.
Okay, where would you like for me to start? Reclassification. You have under here discovery, access, and redress to all known tribal records that provide direct distinction of misclassified American Indian that are in possession of the United States Bureau of Indian Affairs, National Archives, Department of Housing, United States Department of Defense, and the United States Department of Commerce. Create a federally commissioned genealogical committee managed by the UIHS, which is the Urban Indian Historical Society. Please forgive me if I'm saying that wrong, to examine genealogical findings of bloodline lineage for misclassified American Indians, to properly connect birthright, investigate American Indian roles, such as the Dawes Rolls or the Dawes Act of 1886 or 1887. And the American Artifact Asset Discovery and Recovery. Create an oversight committee that governs the 7 mandatory criteria for tribal membership and appeals for tribal membership now with all state and federally recognized tribes. Okay, so this is all part of reclassification. I understand. I can go with that. You guys would like to be. Yeah, I'm not gonna. That's not my argument though. That's not what I'm asking you here. That's not.
That's what my definition of misclassification is, sir. I just wanted to answer your question that you had. That's
Okay.
what the definition of misclassified means.
Okay, so you would say that you are when you look at it maternally, you're saying that you are Muskogee Creek here, right?
Yeah.
You are. So you come.
That's one of the tribes, but like I said, I also have Choctaw lineage. Also.
You also have Choctaw lineage too.
Sure.
Okay. Okay. All right, man. I mean, I don't know what else to say other than the fact that it sounds a bit. Okay. I'll still sign the petition for you. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm all about Black African power and all like that. And I just don't say. I just don't get where you're coming from when you identify as Muskogee Creek, because the Muskogee, they never identified as Creek. They only identified as Muskogee. That was it. The term Creek was given to them by the United States, by the United States officials. They were never called Creek Indians.
It's actually given by the
Okay,
British.
well, they never called themselves that. Whatever, British, white, they all the same. They all synonymous with each other. They never called themselves Creek.
Okay, I would agree with you on that. I was using it for communication purposes. That's
all. Okay, Mr.
I don't know who I'm speaking to, so.
My name is Chris MVP Harris.
Okay, well, it's very nice to speak to you, brother Chris.
Likewise, guys. Thank you, man. Appreciate it, man.
You're welcome. Peace and blessings to you, family.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Check the sound. 1, 2. 1, 2. Good. We have 14 people. How many likes? Only 6 likes. It's not great. You can do better than that, brothers and sisters. In the meantime, we have Chia Ahmed, who wrote, many black people were already here long before Columbus or slave trade, much longer than 400 years. Well, I wonder what you are basing this affirmation. I'm wondering on what you are basing this affirmation. Typically, people will refer to the Olmec head. Besides that, I don't think we have much to argue. The presence of black people in America before the arrival of Christopher Columbus. RP asked if this call was live, and no, I actually answered. Uh, it was not live now, but it was during Chris's live stream. We have 16 people online now. How many likes do we have? Only still 6 likes. Okay, I don't think I'm going to last longer than this evening. Bear with me 1 second. Let me first share Britannica's article about the five civilized tribes. There's a Moorish guy. Well, maybe he doesn't refer to himself as Moorish, but he claims to be indigenous to America. He usually comes in. He doesn't want to show his face for whatever reason, and he comes in quite regularly. So there was a mention of these tribes. Somebody actually asked him. Maybe it was Chris actually who asked him. Are you from the five civilized tribe? And he wouldn't want to answer, which indicates that probably that's what he gets down with. But you heard about Choctaw lineage, and all the other stuff. So this is Britannica here. Now let's have a look. Five civilized tribes. Five civilized tribes term that has been used officially and unofficially since at least 1866 to designate the Cherokee, Choctaw, Chickasaw, Creek, and Seminole Indians in Oklahoma, former Indian Territory. Beginning in 1874, they were dealt with as a single body by the Bureau of Indian Affairs of the U.S. Department of Interior, but there has never been any unification or overall organization of these tribes under that name. The word civilized was applied to the five tribes because, broadly speaking, they had. I thought I could close this ad, but so the word civilized was applied to the five tribes because, broadly speaking, they had developed extensive economic ties with whites or had assimilated into American settler culture. Some members of the southeastern tribes had adopted European clothing, spoke English, practiced Christianity, and even owned slaves. In the meantime, Six Finger wrote, I want to know where are the Black Indians of Canada at? And there, for whatever Wikipedia is worth, I'm going to share the same entry. Link is in the chat. So Britannica, Encyclopedia Britannica used the term stated that they even owned slaves. Now let's look at the different wording from Wikipedia. The format is okay. I'll move along then. How does it look? Okay. The term five, the term five civilized tribes was applied by European Americans in the colonial and early federal period in the history of the United States to the five major Native American nations in the Southeast, the Cherokee, Chickasaw, Choctaw, Creek, Muskogee, and Seminole. Americans of European descent classified them as civilized because they had adopted attributes of the Anglo American culture. Examples of such colonial attributes adopted by these five tribes included Christianity, centralized government, literacy, market participation, written constitution, intermarriage with white Americans, and chattel slavery practices, including purchase of enslaved African Americans. Oh my goodness. So, we have a case of some African Americans, some Afro Americans, who identify with their former slave owners. See, I like what Chris Harris does. For example, not long ago, he addressed Garfield, and he stated that Garfield doesn't have a bachelor's degree, contrary to what he claimed on the large platform. We have a so-called conscious community, and people just come on the air and lie, and people don't call them out on that. Now, I've been hearing a lot of talk about slavery, and sometimes uh, Africans of today are almost blamed for the transatlantic slave trade. Other participants, other participants of the transatlantic slave trade don't get much criticism. Africans tend to get more criticism, but for a strange reason, when it's the Native Americans that own slaves and practice chattel slavery, for a strange reason, it gets a pass. It's all good, no criticism. There was a documentary, I think it's called Black Slaves, Red Masters. Black Slaves, Red Masters. That's 10 years ago, that's 11 years ago. Okay, what I will do is access Red Masters. Slap. I'm gonna delete that. Gonna delete that comment. I thought I blocked that Robert dude. Well, you must have created another account. Or maybe I did not block him because this account joined on March 14, 2012. So, okay, now he's blocked. You can step out of here. Okay. So, I'm going to share those links. Bear with me. One, two, part three. That's part one here. Then part two here. That's part three. That was uploaded 11 years ago. Somebody else 10 years ago, 1 year later, has uploaded the full thing. So I'm going to give you that link as well. The three links are from the original uploader. Oh, the last link is not in full. Well, never mind. So you see, Black Slaves, Red Masters, part one, part two, part three, and then full documentary. And the link is not in full, but you can easily use this URL. You just have to copy from the www. You can ignore what is there first. We have the Pharaohs as well, Hotep. Um, P wrote, I suspect most of the indigenous talk now is because of reparations discussion, maybe, but maybe usually it's the Moorish type of people, claim that they are indigenous and all that, what I'm saying. So it is weird. It is weird that some people are willingly, oh, Sister RP, Hotep Sinet.
Hotepsin.
Glad you're here. Feel free to speak, sister.
Hold on, I'm trying to stop the other video.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here. I don't want you to be alone. Hope everything's doing good. Hotep,
Yeah.
the
Okay.
to Chia. Um, I don't like. I think I said it before, and I'm not by any means saying that I have a lot of historical um, information to give on the the travels of African people globally. You know, you hear so much. And I started looking into, stuff. I was told that, we've been in Japan, like the first samurai and Buddhist monks were black and they're jet black, and then Indonesia, and then I've seen people from what's called Melanesia. So I know that there's kind of contemporarily a trend of calling people who are highly pigmented or melanated black as well, but that doesn't mean they're African descended all the time. But then, okay, I do have Stolen Legacy and I do have They Came Before Columbus. So okay, so if this is these men's best estimation based on archaeological, research and stuff that they were African people, okay. I don't find anything wrong with that. But I think there's a bigger focus to be had. What is the constructive, again, value of finding out any type of information about yourself or the group of people you belong to if it's not to produce justice? Instead of justice being produced, there's more concentration on whether a person's indigenous or not, so they can, again, my assessment, legally claim some type of damages in the form of reparations. And I mean, I grew up in so I'm born in the 80s, more conscious of the 90s going forward. Black people, very few black people would talk about being indigenous. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying that there it is impossible. My mom and my grandmother told me that I have an ancestor, great great great, that was Choctaw or something. Okay, but there's bickering coming out of this. There's fighting coming out of this. Even on the other end, if you're dealing with people that are more concentrating on African ancestry versus American indigenous, people infighting between Islam, Kemet. Man, it's so bad. I see people beefing in Yoruba. Like they throwing spells back and forth on each other, like Ephas and Brujas and stuff. Like what? this Wait, so let me get this straight. We know all these secrets. We can read the Meta Nature. We read and write in Arabic. We out here doing martial arts, kung fu, because we the original. You know what I'm saying? Kung fu masters, monks, and the only smoke and the only thing we can get out of this information is to fight each other, not improve knowledge itself in the form of I know myself, therefore I know you, and I wouldn't abuse myself, so I wouldn't abuse you. And we have a group of people that have made it known they want and will and can abuse us. So how do we counteract that? Ain't nobody gonna be absolutely right in this situation, and ain't nobody gonna be absolutely wrong. But we could be correct or incorrect by what we do with the information and produce justice or continue to be subjugated to the system of racism, white supremacy. That to me is the biggest deal of all. I just want to know, like, where are we going with this? That's what I'm asking everybody. Like the sister Tachia told me years ago when I started learning, the mindset got to change, period. You could be, that's why they call them educated fools. So to find out information and have nothing productive come from it, that's why I was jumping on to say that.
I hear you, sister. But the reality is that the quote unquote infighting doesn't happen only amongst black people. What we're seeing now with Russia and Ukraine, It's not just between those two countries that there's contention, but between France, England. I mean, most of Europe versus Russia, and also America. They're not so much in good terms. Amongst the Chinese people, you have like I think there's a Han Dynasty, but there are some tribes, two tribes that really don't get along. You know, and even Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, the Norteños and the Serranos, like the Northerners and the Southerners. One of them is considered to be like more like farmer type of people, so they don't really like each other. Now they might click in jail, but they just don't really like each other. So uh, you would have Yoruba people that will ultimately that might have some contention, but um, there's a reality of tribalism and conflicts because of tribalism. This is a reality, but once again, it's not exclusive to Africa. In other places, um, we might not call it tribalism, but there are some conflicts among people of the same kind who are not Black Africans as well. So when it comes to us as a people, when we have some individuals that identify with the former slave owners or slave masters, I would say that it's a waste of time and energy to associate ourselves with them. And I was looking for Nuri Muhammad's video. I couldn't find it. Um, but I have it somewhere. And he said the rest of these uh, people are just your associates. He said the only friends you have is a messenger, the 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 believers, and he might have said something else as well. So he was, and that was something stated public. It's not like the audio of Farrakhan addressing Reza Islam's charge of rape, because some people are crying, talking about this was a private conversation. It should have never been out, and some people are even trying to make some uh, uh, insinuate that some people are going after Reza Islam because of his popularity, as if it's the enemy, as they call him, who's behind this. This was Farrakhan talking. I mean, Farrakhan should know what he's talking about. Now, this is a charge at this stage. This is an accusation. So, they will deal with it. They deal with stuff like that internally, but it's on them. So, I don't want to lose my thought now, because I talked about Nuri, and then I wanted to talk about well, I'm gonna have to digress about that because I forgot why I went from Nuri to Farrakhan. Um, but Nuri made it clear. Oh yeah, that's why I talked about Farrakhan, because Nuri stated that publicly. We have it on tape saying that. So that's the way they really feel. You know, the rest of Black people who are not Muslims, they're not friends. They're just associates. And there's also the video of Farrakhan, I'm sorry, Dr. Wesley Muhammad that I've played. And he said, our children are being kidnapped by ideologies other than Islam, gangs, Afrocentricity, and the so called culture of hip hop. Then later on, he said, we are losing our children to all of these ideologies.
I'm
So,
surprised he didn't mention
mhm.
wait. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, go ahead.
Of all the things he could have said in the middle, he actually said Afrocentricity.
He said that. He said that. I mean, I have the tape somewhere. But I've played it many times. Unfortunately, I lost several accounts. But he cannot deny that because I have the tape somewhere. He knows if he denies it, I'm going to put it up. Um, as a matter of fact, those two things that I've said that I have shared back then, Asahi Mofe, when he addressed Wesley, he actually quoted those two individuals. You know what I'm saying? So this is how they feel. But we like to talk about Black people as if we're supposed to all be in this together. And we cannot be successful in any endeavors just based on the color of our skin. That's not sufficient. We have to have some ideology or some sort of culture that we agree upon.
Okay, I agree with that, and I'm fearful in the sense of, I'm just aware that if we just don't get on the same page, then because you mentioned all these other groups worldwide that have bickering going on, if there can't be just an agreement that everyone's human, then the people I mentioned before that are dominating the world, white supremacists, and their collaborators, because some of them are not white or European, they're going to make it where we all have one way to function and think. And I don't think nobody's really going to like that. They making their plans known. If you read different trade magazines and business magazines and tech magazines, the way they trying to go, with the future. Plus on top of that, we're dealing with very, very severe and repetitious ecological things that are happening because not fully understanding that we're we're affecting our environments, and we're just not living in lockstep with nature because we fighting all the time over stuff that don't matter. And I want to say I agree with you. To identify with a person that practice injustice, yeah, that is a waste of time. It absolutely is. But I would also say to identify with something that's not harmful at all but doesn't produce anything is also a waste of time. The
Like
ultimate
what?
thing
Like
is
what?
just like something silly and okay, for instance, people that like to dress up like Hello Kitty. After a while it's like, what are you doing? What comes out of that you could say is productive other than it made you feel good? I'm not putting down people that like Hello Kitty because I used to like Hello Kitty, but I'm just throwing it out. That's a thing, right? But if that's all you focus on day in and day out, let's go the other way, right? There are people that think that there are cats. There are people that think that there are dogs and dolphins and wolves, y'all. What's productive about that, right? So the same thing, if I want to identify as an indigenous American, and that's what I stomp on, or I want to identify as Kimite or whatever. Maybe I'm a Republican, damn it, I'm a black Republican. Okay, where's the balance? How does the balance yield something productive from that identification? Because all these people, all I see is we got people identifying as this, and this. The people with these separate identities have these micro cultures that most of the time yield negative things. And collectively, we just have negativity. In the meantime, we literally have a planet that is changing because of what we're doing. We don't have the ability to grow our own food anymore. Most of us don't know how to grow food, don't have land to grow food. The water, pay attention, especially in America. Everywhere black people live, just about in America, the water's contaminated. I find that to be very convenient considering that water is something that is considered a commodity now. So now you can't get clean water really and truly unless you're paying for it. But we got time to fight and dress up like dogs and say I'm a dog or say I'm a, you know what I'm saying? Where
Mhm.
where does the contemplation of, oh snap, we could be out of here in 100 years? Like people could literally be extinct.
I feel you. I
Yeah.
feel you. But the thing is that, you talked about land. The Nation of Islam had that program about land. So they got millions of dollars and nothing much was done. They might have a few farms, here and there, but, compared to what was presented, we're far from that goal. And I'm referring to the book called Inside the Nation of Islam. That guy was in the organization, and he just talked about different projects. But we could follow tradition that we can identify with, that our forefathers have practiced. But instead, most black people in America and worldwide follow tradition that their forefathers did not initiate. So the people who benefit from that ultimately it's not us, because there's usually literature, there's usually clothing. A lot of people do pilgrimage to some holy places. And what makes a place holy? Some people, I've asked that question a long time ago. What does make a place? What does make a place holy? Is it God or is it the people? As far as I'm concerned, it's the people. You see. Now they will claim because God said so, or one of the messengers of God said so, but that there's a huge amount of money generated yearly out of this pilgrimage to these holy places or holy sites. So now we are in a situation where uh, the people are trying to go back to their roots, to some traditional African way of life. They are being disrespected, like people like Garfield, who is to me an undercover Christian apologist. He's disrespecting anybody that want to deal with him, and he's not the only one. He has a lot of people on the bandwagon. But if you're a Christian, for example, he's all good with you. It's cool. It's legitimate. You know. So that's weird. And he's not the only one. Wesley Muhammad came up and he said, throw him into the garbage can, throw him out in the trash can, throw him and rather stay making God away. As a matter of fact, it's usually the Abrahamic people who have a problem because the Hebrews were like that as well. They usually criticize committed people. So um, those people are slowing some alternative movements. They are slowing down some alternative movements. So at some point, we have to be selective. You know, we have a so-called conscious community, and we have several large platforms, and they invite the people who follow all those different traditions, ideologies, and doctrine that were not initiated by our forefathers. And like the Moorish Science Temple of America has been there for over a century, and the Nation of Islam, they say that Prophet Muhammad came in 1910 and he revealed himself, if I'm not mistaken, in 1930. And then in 1934, he disappeared, he bounced. So uh, we could say that, in about uh, 8 years, it will be 100 years, a century, that the Nation of Islam was official, you know. So they've had their time. We are seeing the result. They have mm, a few years ago associated themselves, allied themselves with the Church of Scientology. So now even the Church of Scientology is cool. Dr. Wesley Muhammad, PhD, said that he supports the effort of Dianetics, and Dianetics is the Church of Scientology. So people kind of accept everything. And needless to say that one of their medical doctor, who is deceased now, stated publicly, and I've played the tape several times, that we can cure AIDS with raw milk. So not only the ideology will be anti-black and anti-African. I mean, we've heard Farrakhan talking about we are marked and disfigured, and our phenotype is the essence of ugliness because we rebelled against God. But even health-wise, it will go as far as say that we can cure AIDS with raw milk. Dr. Wesley Muhammad, PhD, said that milk is liquid sunlight. So sorry, he said that milk is liquid sunlight. He said that milk is the food of the gods. So even health wise, those people are leading us astray. So it's time for us to be selective. This conscious community will not lead us anywhere. It's more of a spectacle. And it's up to yeah, go ahead, sister.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot that I forgot. I heard you say that a couple years ago and I forgot. Oh, okay. So listen. That that I had a question because of everything you were saying, but that raw milk is sunlight thing threw me off, but I got it back.
Liquid sunlight.
Liquids.
The food of the god. Milk is the food of the god.
Yeah, Is he talking about the gods of Mount Olympus? Like I feel like he's talking about Greek mythology or something. I think that's the only other time I heard that.
Well, I don't think he's referring to that because when the NOI talk about gods, I mean, I think he said it makes the food of the gods. I forgot if he said it plural or singular, but usually when they say God, they like to say the black man is God, you know. So they would not talk about, Greece, I mean,
No,
everybody's free to ask him. Yes.
he's not, but I feel I because of I could be incorrect. I'm still learning. The only instances of that being said was I thought what I it's been a while, but it was Greek mythology when they were talking about the milk was and honey and all that and stuff. And I'm like, is he just like lifting it from that and putting it?
Oh,
Okay,
the land of milk and honey, that would be Canaan. But
okay,
he's certainly not talking about Canaan. He did not address Canaan. He was just talking about literally the milk coming from the
okay.
cow. That's what he was talking about. So maybe they cut some deal with some milk companies, or I don't know what it was. But I mean, he caught a lot of heat for that. You know,
Well,
he caught
I
a lot of heat. Yes.
well, real quick for the people that don't know about cow's milk, it's not that good for you. Don't drink that really. It takes the calcium out of your bones. And yeah, no. But anyhow, is it so I just guess the question I was coming up to is it just sounds like everybody ego tripping instead of just being like you could believe what you believe, but let's work again in harmony with each other to make life overall better. And we can even practice what we practice separately, or you get what I'm saying? We still just recognizing we're still on planet Earth. We still all want to survive. We have offspring on the planet that don't know anything, and we're formulating their minds. And let me insert this story. I told my mom and some other people because it really stands out. I was teaching this week, and there was a fight in the cafeteria during lunch, and so I had a class right after, and I asked the students, I was like, who was excited to see the fight? Like, raise your hand. So some kids went like this, and then some kids looked around to see who was actually going to be bold. And the boys, like a couple boys, raised their hand. And I asked them why. And one student was like, he said, well, there's nothing to do. It's boring. I said, okay. Then the other kid was like, well, it's like boxing. Like they show boxing on the TV. So it's like watching that. I said, okay. And I told him, I was thank you for being honest. And I said, it's not your fault that you are excited by a fight because the culture extols fighting. This is what you see, predominating. So it's like if we conscious or can we become conscious enough to understand that no matter what you believe, again, as a whole group of people on the planet that have the so-called the highest consciousness of all the other beings because of what we're able to do, right? Oh, excuse me. And knowing that our consciousness is going to eventually materialize through action, and there are people developing their consciousness based on what we do. It just seems like where's the shortcome where we can't get to that point and just decide to go forward no matter what we believe, again, positively and constructively.
But then she said, when people say, those are not your brothers, those are just your associates. And when they say, throw Kemet in the garbage can, throw my in the trash can, throw Amen rather, so they're making God away. I don't think it's possible to move in unison. I really don't think it is. And as a matter of fact, um, uh, Pan Africanism has been there for several decades. The Moorish Science Temple of America has been there for a century. The NOR nearly a century, and I'm pretty sure that way back they knew that we're supposed to be together and move together. But look at the result now. you know and now we are more in the age of information, mainly because back then people had to deal with the civil rights movement, the Jim Crow era, the lynchings and so on. And those things are not really happening like it used to. I mean, you have of course police brutality in cases of now before I continue, Jason Edwards wrote that phrase, "food of the god," refers to ambrosia in Greek mythology. Now, the quote is, "Milk is liquid sunlight." The other quote is, "Milk is the food of the god." I doubt that Wesley Muhammad, Dr. Wesley Muhammad, was talking about any Greek mythology, and everybody's free to ask him, "Well, are you talking about Greek mythology?" I don't think he will deal with that. So, um, we have the result now. We have the result. This is reality. So, might as well let them do their thing, and and getting uh cleared with the Church of Scientology method, you know, and keep on defending negrophobic and anti-black statements like they have done with Gaddafi when he labeled Africans as barbarians and other negative terms. That same Dr. Wesley Muhammad was making excuses, talking about people don't understand that this is like a strategic move. So I mean, even the genocide that was going on in Sudan, that video that I've shown, Shaka Nugu came and checking Dr. Wesley Muhammad, which was uploaded on Ankakek's channel, um, 10 years ago. Um, Farrakhan is at a radio station and talking about there's no genocide in Sudan. I even heard about some journalist. I think he said before there's no slavery in Sudan as well. So those journalists, I've heard about them. They went to Sudan. They bought some some black folks. I'm saying just to make a point, you know. So they have the ideology. They are defending their ideology, and they are ultimately defending other slave masters. You know, but for strange reason, when it comes to Africans, we don't have that much leeway. Uh,
Um,
yeah, go
I'm
ahead,
sorry,
sister.
go ahead.
No, it's okay. Go ahead.
This reminds me, there's another channel, I think is UV TV or something. And he posts a lot about the boule, which I also call the petite bourgeois, which is this sector of black society that thinks they're better than everybody and did just what you talked about with the Church of Scientology. But what the petite bourgeois or the boule would do, 18th century, early 19th century, there were these black people with certain maybe mixed heritage, maybe somebody had a white parent, or kind of like we talked about this, I think, a few years ago with the whole mixed offspring and how they would categorize it, like octoroon, quadroon, mulatto. So some of those people would be in those categories. Um, and then some of those people might be black, but they would have found a way to, like, kind of economically and socially climb. So the higher they climb, they get more affiliated and identify more with, like you said, slave masters, i.e., the white supremacists that say, hey, well, this would be good for your people if they go about it this way, right? And they get conditioned. But then, instead of maintaining or understanding that I'm still a part of this group that's being done wrong, they become separate in their own sphere, and start to look down on the people that they want to help at the same time. Like, so now you see, or I've seen personally, um the modern day presentation of the NAACP, a part of that Boule Society, and talked to a lady over the phone that treated me like I was like hot garbage because I didn't have doctor or PhD or something behind my last name. She didn't know who I was.
Elitist.
Hmm. Yeah, wannabes too. Like, you're not even, if you really look at how this works, you nowhere near the top, but you on top of me, so you get to mistreat me. And that's why but okay, so just going there, if we how is this gonna end? Like, is everybody just ready to just get down? Like, are we just gonna say, fluff it one day, let's have the purge, let's get into some real
No,
stuff? Because
no,
ain't
no, no.
everybody doing
I'm
this.
talking about that.
But I'm just saying, like, for everybody to be so mad, right? For everybody to be so insulted because you do this and you do that and you don't believe my way and da 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 da. Like, and to say throw this in the trash, though, that's fighting words. So are these
Yes,
people?
that's worse. That's worse. We're really not fighting. The thing is that those guys, those organizations have been established. They have chapters, temples, and places where they meet, and where they generate money. But like Kemetic people, there's just so few organization. We don't have anything mainstream. Though some of these organizations they are international. Established internationally. You know, but the reality, and I've stressed that many times over the years, those Abrahamic believers, they are in unison against Kemetic people and traditional African ways of life in general, but mainly the Kemetic way of life, and they have been for a while. And you have some people, I don't want to say names, but they claim to be Kemetic, and they will allow all those people who are anti-black and anti-African and anti-Kemetic, um, to have a voice on their platform. You know, so we're not really advancing. I made an analogy years ago. It's like you're in a boat, you're at the front, you trust those other people in the back, you don't even look behind you. You're rowing, but they are rowing in the opposite direction. So you're not even advancing slowly, you're just stagnating, if not going back. You know. So my proposition is not to fight against people who don't share the same worldview, but it's to be selective. Because those guys, they keep on doing their thing. They'll keep on releasing their books. They'll keep on releasing their documentaries, their videos, their DVDs. You know what I'm saying? Just like Tariq Nasheed used to do. He appealed to people who were down with Africa with his Hidden Color series. Now he's like a black Trump, disrespecting non-African Americans on a very regular basis. So I propose to be selective. Those other organizations have been there for the longest, and now they're running with a church societology, talking about being cleared, talking about Ingrams and Xenu, accepting all that, and um Edwin Herbert was known to be anti-black, racist. So some people identify with the former slave owners. Other people ally themselves with some organization brought forth by a person that was anti-black. You know, I mean, it's just weird. It's just weird. And why are we supposed to accept that? Why are we supposed to follow that? You know, because we have the same skin color. That's not the good methodology. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, I so to be upfront with whoever's watching, we talked about this a little bit offline. I kind of study Buddhism along with Kemet,
Mhm.
and I will say, at this point in time, the teachings of Buddha probably are doing more to keep me calm or get me calm, because you literally have to tell yourself, okay, this emotion is present. And why do I feel this way? I feel this way because of this. And like throw it away. And if I'd have been doing that when I was younger, I probably really would be, at a certain like height mentally and spiritually, but I'm learning it now and I'm doing it. And it's like if we can't get to that point where we can just throw these negative emotions out, like we don't have no future like this. We literally have to come to that reality and understand there's nothing harmonious or productive that's going to occur on planet Earth, because somebody eventually that has the power to do real and physical damage to a mass amount of people is going to do that. But then maybe the next time it'll be more cataclysmic. And we can't say that's impossible. We have too many instances in history, in modern history, of cataclysmic events happening. We're talking about atom bombs, talking about planes going into, you know what I'm saying, buildings, whatever, whether it's landmines, whatever. It's almost like human beings. The only thing I can say, let me go back a little bit and preface it by saying this. When I started to really, really understand what was going on in the world, I think I was like in fourth grade. It was because of how I was being mistreated at school by teachers and students, and then just starting to understand and hear more bad news. So I started joking and telling people I was from Neptune because I didn't want to be from Earth. And it was almost like if I have the ability to like escape this somehow, I don't want to be here. I want to go somewhere where it looks tranquil. And that's my favorite color. So I picked that planet. That's not true. I am not saying I'm
Of course,
extraterrestrial.
of course.
But what I am also saying is it's like we I lost my thought. But it's just gonna lead up to something where there won't be nobody damn near left some kind of way. Like
Uh,
either like what do we do? Are we gonna just be like, yeah, let's all just go into the metaverse and dumb ourselves down and do the surrogate thing and live,
mm,
virtually? Are we gonna just duke it out and fight each other finally and get it over with? Or are we just gonna slowly but surely nitpick each other to death
mm.
like we doing right now? Which is agony. This
No, I
torture.
no, I wouldn't say it's nitpicking. Nitpicking is when you highlighting some stuff that could be labeled as irrelevant. But when people say that black people are marked as disfigured because they rebelled against God, and our phenotype is the essence of ugliness, when people say throw them in a garbage can, throw them out in the trash can, throw them in the rather slave making God away, that's not being nitpicking to address that. Because if we say similar things about the Quran, about Allah, about Muhammad, it will be World War III. So it's just not being nitpicking at all. I mean, they are the one who dissing black people and Africans in general. Those
Well,
Asiatic black men, those Abrahamic believers.
I don't necessarily mean you, or I don't want to say
Yeah.
that because I agree. If you
Mm,
feel like it's right, if you're trying to balance it out and defend yourself, by all means. But I'm
mm.
like the back and forth, cumulatively is like isn't this like antagonistic to isn't I
You
don't
could
be
say that.
arguing with
You,
nobody, and
you,
it's
you,
like Jesus, this is like
you,
every
you,
time
you
you look around somebody fighting. Hmm?
Well, no, but I disagree with the word fight because it's like debates, discussions. Some people are really going at it. It's true. But Christians and Muslims, for example, they have debates so often, and it's not just the Christians and Muslims, other people as well. But mainly it's the Christians and the Muslims. And in America, their debates are just real thorough. If you compare it to Europe. Because in Europe it's like too politically correct. But in America, I've seen so many debates between Christians and Muslims, and they go at it. So there's always been things that humans don't agree on, and they just have different debates. But you are talking about ecology, about the planet and the planet. Sorry, I had that social network, the Ning network, which was very big, in like '08, '09, maybe 2010 as well. And I will put plenty of documentaries, and I think I've also shared a documentary called "Who Killed the Electric Car." Now, back then, the electric car wasn't really the thing, but now it is. And now with the, the price of gas, it's quite convenient, to have an electric car because the range is just way longer than what it used to be. So that's one thing that could help the electric energy, not only for cars, but if that can be used. I mean, it's already being used for buses. There's a bus that goes in front of my house, and it's hydrogen. You know, so after the electric cars, we're gonna have it. We already have some cars that run out of hydrogen. So the range is longer. Of course, the price is more expensive, but um, it takes like maybe 5 minutes to I don't want to say charge, but to have full range capacity. And the range is just longer. You might have like 500, 600 kilometers range. Which might be around, I'm making an estimate, but maybe 350 miles, something like that. Because basically 1 mile is 1.6 kilometers. So since we have cars and buses that run out of electricity and hydrogen, then hopefully we can have boats as well doing the same thing. Hopefully. and ultimately planes as well. These are the kind of things that they are trying to work on. People are using windmills, but it's very costly in terms of maintenance, and so some people are disputing the efficiency of windmills. So those are just two examples that will reduce, the how do you call it, the use of fossil energy and basically the heating up of the planet. The people who are messing with the planet the most are the richest countries, the richest nations, and they are the lesson givers. The people who give the moral lessons, they are the one who messing up the planet. But they're realizing that it's the people who suffer the most from the global warming is the impoverished nation or developing countries. But ultimately, in the long run, it's gonna just be messed up for everybody. You know. So uh, the number one goal is sustenance control. So they want to have a hand on the natural resources. They want to make sure that they are safe and that they control other nations. Sorry. So uh, the ecology, the states of the planet is not the priority. Their priority is to put a smackdown on everybody that don't want to get in the program. So it is important to protect the planet, but we should try to protect ourselves and make sure that we are safe and that we are uh, uh, wealthy and healthy. And then ultimately, we might, try to ally with other people and try to, make sure that the planet is a better place. Uh, we are in a situation where, um, like in America, we have the police brutality, and this is very consistent. So I think this needs to be sorted first before we worry so much about the planet. I remember Raskas who said, I forgot what he said at the beginning, but he says, I gotta save myself before I save some goddamn whales. One of his lyrics, he says that. But I care about the planet. That's the reason why I got an electric car. One of the reasons why I got an electric car. But uh, at the end of the day, in Europe, by like probably 2035, uh, and in France, I think it's some dates like that, 2030 something. Uh, it will no longer be allowed to sell cars that run out of fuel. You know, it will have to be electric, or hydrogen and stuff like that. So that's going to help a lot for the environment, for the climate, for the global warming, ultimately. Yeah.
Um, so I think saving.
Wait, sister, hold
Oh, okay.
on. We have that dude who wrote, RP is fine. She should stay away from this dude. He fears questions. You fear getting on the panel and asking your questions. I mean, I really don't understand trolls, but it's all good. Go ahead, sister.
Um, I definitely agree that we have immediate problems, like you said, police brutality and stuff, and that kind of makes my point too. If we can concentrate on uh, once again producing justice, which is a balance among people and a system where no one's mistreated and everyone who needs help gets the most constructive help. And those are the words of Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. So if we have people, so for instance, since we have this division or these divisions among Black people, and some people are Moors, some people are Kemites, some people are part of the nation, some people are Christians. Well, then let's disperse and work on one of the issues that is plaguing us. You take sustainability. Y'all work on that. We're gonna work on getting political prisoners out of jail. We're gonna work on making sure people don't have to commit crimes to survive. You work on fixing the school system, because at that point it's independent entities and structures that are united to one goal, producing justice. So and then if you're doing that, things will come more in balance, where you can again sustain your life and not have to be so concerned about okay, well, we're raiding the oceans since you mentioned saving the whales. We're raiding the oceans just so we could have fried fish on Friday. We're polluting. I was just looking at a documentary last night that we're polluting the air and other places where people that aren't white live to detonate old fireworks and ammunition, and then that's causing problems. So we fix that. So now those people don't have that problem. And
Well,
it just
you know,
everybody's smart enough to do something to contribute to.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you. And I'm sorry for cutting you off, but the reality is that, like the Nation of Islam, the Hebrew Israelites, the Black Christians, the people who are Kemetic, they will not split um, goals like, getting the political prisoners out, and in the police brutality. They will not do that. I mean, if they wanted to do it, they would have done it by now. Every now and then they have some summit, that state of the black union, they get together, they speak, and that's about it. But not intangible comes out of this stuff, and that's the thing. That's the thing. Those organizations been there for so long, and they roll for theirs, like the movie. What's the title of the movie again? um Knockdown. They say we strap for hours. Master P plays in that movie. I think he's the one who actually might be one of the producers of the movie. It might have something to do with the production of the movie, but they strive for theirs. That's their main focus. They the nation of Islam is not working for the well-being of Kemetic people. You know what I'm saying? That's not their goal. You know what I'm saying? It's not their goal. I'm saying for the Hebrew Israelites, they don't care. I mean, when we hear them talking about Africans, not all of them, but so many of them, they are very clear that they have hate for Africans. As a matter of fact, we have Baba Heru was asked a question. Sanetta was asking the question about Hebrew Israelites, and I think he mentioned to Zaya. Some Hebrew Israelites celebrate the death of Africans. How are we going to unite with people like that? You know, and some Pan Africans will be cool with uniting with people like that because Pan Africanism is a melting pot of rapists and pedophiles and thieves and everything that's bad on planet Earth. We do have some good Pan Africans, but if you're a person that's a good person, how are you going to associate yourself with people who defend rapists and pedophiles?
How
If
did
you're,
this start, Shaka? To you, how did we get here?
how did we get to America? Or
No, the mindset we have.
well, after what we went through as a people, um, there's been some damage, psychological damage. So as the slavery ended, people had different doctrines and they rolled with it. You know, so when some people say, okay, white man is this, some people were happy to hear that. You know, and anything that's tying you to God is attractive, and you oppress people. What do they say? Religion is the opium of the people. So we had all those religious movement. Nation of Islam is a religious movement. Before it's a black organization, it's a black organization, what it was anyway, but it's mainly a religious movement. Religions of so-called Muslims. They're not Orthodox Muslims. We had the Ben Yahweh organization, those Hebrew Israelites or Hebrews or however they were called. You know what I'm saying? We have Malachi York, who went from being like a Muslim to a Christian, or maybe a Christian first, a Muslim, but I think it was a Muslim first. Yeah, Imam Isa, and then we have the Tabernacle. It was like kind of a Christian, and then in the end, it was a United Nubian Nation of Moors. And they appear to be mainly Kemetic, but it was still a organization of Moors. And of course we have the MSTA. So what is the common the common thing with all these organizations? They are religious organizations. You know, so people have beliefs. Black people worldwide, we usually believe a lot. We are very religious, and we have those movements with some certain doctrines, theology, and people roll with it. Like the Nation of Islam members, they really believe that Fa Muhammad is Allah. That Allah came in the person of Muhammad, and they really believe that Elijah Muhammad was his messenger. You know, and we have the issue of the underage secretaries who were impregnated by Elijah Muhammad. It was so inconvenient that they killed Malcolm X. They threatened his life and they killed him. But now, we have some rewriting of history. We have three books that's going to come out that's going to attempt to tell us that, the Nation of Islam didn't have anything to do with it, that he was quote unquote white supremacy or white supremacist. You know what I'm saying? Which is a typical talk. It's the typical scapegoat. Once again, there's the Hanafi murders. They almost decimated the family because the guy wrote a letter to criticize Elijah Muhammad's doctrine. You know what I'm saying? And other people, face the wrath of that organization. So, um, like I said many times, they are not responsible for the safety of Chicago, but the headquarters of the Nation of Islam is in Chicago, and Chicago is really, really horrible, safety wise. And I remember way back, I was it was a Blog Talk Radio broadcast, and a brother called and said, "Well, but what's going on in Chicago? The media is like exaggerating what's going on." I'm like, even if they are exaggerating, I mean, who's going to deny that there's a huge uh, 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 gang violence problem in Chicago? That so many people, underage people, very young people, getting murdered all the time. We have a lot of gang activity in LA, but I don't think there's that many young 18-year-old, 17-year-old people who get killed, like people are getting killed in Chicago. But anyway, there's gang violence in so many different places. That's just an analogy. Once again, I'm not trying to say that the Nation of Islam is responsible for that. That's not what I'm trying to say at all. But those organizations, I mean, there we gave it a try. We have to be selective, and besides the theology that they have, their teaching in essence is anti-black or anti-African. You know, because once again, they teach that Africans are living in a jungle life. The Africans are not civilized. And I've quoted so many times what Elijah Muhammad had to say. He said, don't tell me to go to Africa, to be civilized. You know what I'm saying?
Do
You
you
can't leave
think
this.
some of
Yes,
these,
go ahead.
I'm sorry,
No, go ahead, sister. Go ahead.
do you think some of these people are getting paid somehow, like to,
Which people?
like the guy that you just mentioned, the jungle life, like is I don't know,
What
it
what
sounds so
what?
extreme
Let,
that it's like, is this
get get
really
get
your
getting paid.
thought?
Get it paid by who?
I'm not even sure.
What's for sure? Like look, I want to share this. I think if I can find it, if I can find it, the Nation of Islam. What title would I inside? Maybe, or maybe if I put donation, because I quoted from that book inside the Nation of Islam. I have too many videos to remember all the titles. Nah, but I'm looking for the video where it goes into details about how much money people spend. Like when the Saviors Day, which happens yearly, there's so much donation that they make. The newspaper that they're supposed to sell, they actually buy them, and then they try to make the money back by selling them, and sometimes they don't manage to sell them all. I mean, the pressure is heavy. Um, but I don't seem to find a video there. Uh, but this is just an example here. $10,000 for a speech. That's how much Farkan got for a speech. $10,000. I'm going to share the link in the chat, and then I'm going to put the video. So, so that's the link there. I'm going to share it. And that's in 1998.
Farrakhan signed approval for the date of November. Quick one. This is a quick one. This is from the book of Khalid, and it's a brief quote from page 90 to 91. It's about the $10,000 Farrakhan speaking fee back in 1988. At the top of the progressive student movement agenda during the fall of 1988,
I said 88, but I surely made a mistake. It's 1998.
agenda during the fall of 1988 was to bring Minister Farrakhan to campus in mid-October 1988. We were beyond ecstatic upon receiving Minister Farrakhan's signed approval for the date of November 18, 1988. However, our scheduled event at
Well, maybe it was 88 because I said it so many times, but let's listen up.
Howard, I'm sorry, our scheduled event at Howard encountered a significant trial. In a campus meeting 2 weeks prior to the event, Minister Farrakhan's local DC minister and national spokesman, Dr. Alim Mohammed, interceded and put a screeching halt to our event, requiring literal proof in advance that the progressive student movement have the $10,000 speaker's fee in hand for Minister Farrakhan's speech. Alim shut our event down, and afterwards, it was painful to watch the Fruit of Islam tear down all of our posters that were plastered on the poles and trees, announcing Minister Farrakhan's coming to Burr Gymnasium. So maybe some people might be able to inform me, but the spokesman, Ali Mohammed, is he the same one who claimed that you can cure milk? I'm sorry, that you can cure AIDS with milk?
We got the gist of it, but that was just for one speech. That was just for one speech. But once again, in the book, the Inside of Nation of Islam, the author goes in depth about, and once again, he was a member. I forgot if he reached the rank of minister, but I think he reached that rank. But I read that book so many years ago. But he goes in details about how much money people pay yearly, and I'm not trying to say that black leaders should not have money or getting paid, but it was just to answer your question. Are they getting paid? They're getting paid by their members a great deal indeed. Now, when they allied themselves with the Church of Scientology, some people have reported that some money was paid, given to the NOI. I don't think those are things that can be greatly verified. But at the end of the day, they can do their thing. They can do their thing. What I don't understand and what I lament is all the people who talk of that black talk. Oh, we have brother Chris. How you doing, brother? I played an excerpt from your conversation with the Ishmael dude. And by the way, he gladly defends the teaching that black means death and Africans are living a jungle life. We had a discussion about that. Was when I asked him, are Africans living a jungle life? He said some Africans live in the jungle, some don't. But anyway, that's another story. We also have Mr. Sharp in the place to be. Now, Six Finger wrote, Egyptians didn't consider themselves African. So what did they consider themselves then? You know, I don't even think the word African existed at the time of Kemet. So I don't really understand why you write that statement here. You know, even the word Egyptians, but I know what you mean. You know, so since I know what you mean, I'm surprised that you write that they didn't consider themselves African. To me, it sounds like oxymoronic. But feel free to add on. Well, feel free, sister, if you want to add on. Feel free.
Um, well, yeah, I suppose that answers the question. It's just a lot of self-loathing and the it's being projected out, I think. instead of just people internalizing it and putting themselves down. For In many instances, it's easier to put other people down than yourself, especially when you have a microphone and an audience. But I don't know. I think I'm a little I'm a little exasperated from just thinking about this because I guess the child in me or the innocent part of me wants to believe that I could pull a string or other people could just pull this string and all of a sudden people be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, this really isn't so important." The bickering and the name calling. Um a- and then going back to what y'all were talking about before with the video from Chris or whatever.
But
Um
sister, I might be wrong. I might be wrong, and maybe different black organizations can get together and have some progress. You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
I think they had the opportunity to do it for a long time. Maybe they will do it tomorrow. Maybe they will do it in 10 years. So if people believe that this is something that can be achieved, by all means, then they should go for it. Personally, my stance is that I don't see it happening anytime soon. I mean, when you have people say throw them in a garbage can, throw them out in the trash can, when you have Hebrews lives that celebrate the death of Africans, and on the other hand, we have some people who describe themselves as Pan Africans or African Americans. You know, there's an incompatibility. You know, but I might be wrong.
Somebody I just saw somebody ask what's wrong with being African American. So in the compensatory code book, um, by Neely Fuller Jr., um, he has this statement. It's called it is VGQ, Victims Guarantee Qualification, meaning if you are non-white in the system of racism, we're going to have a variety of ideas that we've come to separately or together. And when we disagree, we should remember everybody's qualified or guaranteed qualification to their outlook. And kind of going back to what I was talking about with the Buddha aspect, I don't need to take it personal because I don't agree. So asking the question, what's wrong with being Black American? I don't. I hope I never said there was something wrong with being a Black American.
No, you didn't.
I don't necessarily. For me, I can talk about for me, being an American is not a political affiliation. For me, is more geopolitical. I'm born in America.
Mm.
I have ancestry somewhere else, but I also have literal biological traces to the most recent part of the millennium, right? This
But
600-year. Mhm.
I'm sorry, keep going, but I think he's trolling. He wrote, "We are non-black immigrants from the South." So if we are non-black, I mean, it's, you know what? Feel free to call in. I've shared the link in the chat, but I think he's trolling. So keep going, sister. I'm just gonna block it too. I
Oh,
mean, there's some things I can't do, man. But go ahead,
um.
keep going, sister.
So again, I know Black people, if they were here first or from the continent, which I can't prove either way. Me myself, I can't prove how my particular family got in Mississippi and Alabama. I can only go by what I was told, right? So I have been forced to have a birth certificate by the United States of America. So that makes me American. I've been forced to have a social security, and I got a letter here somewhere from the IRS saying that I got to come up with some money. So that
Yeah,
definitely makes me American in that standpoint.
yeah.
But the
That's
idea,
that's your citizenship, indeed. That's your
right?
citizenship.
So, but ideologically, under me understanding what has occurred by way of the corporation, uh, country, and this conglomeration known as the United States of America. I don't agree with that. And Mr. Fuller even has this, I hope I get it right. He even has this pledge when they ask people to say the pledge. I don't stand for the pledge. I'm a veteran and I don't stand for the pledge because when I got in the military and my awakening started to come together, I started realizing, oh, this ain't right. And that pledge and that flag is a big reason why. Um, oh, it's a big reason why there's a lot of injustice under the guise of America. So that part of it I don't agree with. And I even like the saying he has, like, especially around 4th of July. He said, I pledge to that flag the same allegiance that that flag pledges to me. And I was like, ooh. And when you think about it, if that's the case, just going off history, no matter how much um the emotional part of us wants to be like, I'm an American, like really evaluate that off evidence and say that what does that mean. So that part of it I dismiss because it's been about injustice. But yeah, I'm an American, I'm black, obviously I'm Black American. You can hear it how I talk. I don't have the body language of a person that's non-white that lived in the Middle East or lived in on the continent.
But we understand you, sister. I mean, just like Big Road and Peace to Smash Rockwell so Teps, and Big Road that he thinks he was not. He doesn't think that the dude was trolling, but he thinks he was stuck on Morris teaching of we are not black, and I think as well. But those guys, I'm like, okay, whatever. I mean, I rather they come on the platform because some people in the chat is like they're free to say whatever they want in the chat, but for him to say we are non-black immigrants from the south, I'm like, man, I don't know where he's getting with that. You know what I'm saying? But those Moors, they're so confused. They're
I
so
do.
confused. Go ahead, sister.
Black immigrants from the South. So global immigrants or
No,
immigrants
non-black immigrants from the south. He says we are
non-black?
non-black immigrants from the
Oh,
south. That's the thing. So that's why I was like, I think he might be trolling. No, I mean, those guys, oh, we know black, blah blah blah. I mean, they, and it's funny thing is that they like to say we're not black, we're Moors. If you look at the etymology of Moor, ultimately means black.
yeah.
Yeah, Runoko Rashidi stated that. I think Booker T. Washington, oh no, it's Booker T. Coleman, but now he goes by another name. I always have problem pronouncing it. Well, Colin Jones is there, but please use a webcam. That's a requirement, to get on the panel.
Real
And
quick
if I
before
go there, you see,
okay.
it says link to get on the panel. You must show your face, otherwise just use the chat. So please, and I think it's hardcore. Aquan. And you know what? We all know his voice, and I think you know him. So let me
Hmm.
listen up. You're muted. Feel free to speak.
What's up, brother? Nah, I ain't no Alquan.
Oh, okay, all right.
No,
All
I
right.
meant that.
I was
I
I was
typed the wrong thing. What I was trying to say was, it's just the
well, please use the webcam and you be welcome. Please use a webcam. You're still there in the back chat. And when you use a webcam, then you'll be welcome. Go ahead, sister. You wanted to say something, feel free.
What was I about to say? I can't remember. I think I wanted to hear what it listen. I understand why people are kind of all mixed up because, like you said, the damage has been done. But I had a dialogue with my mom last night about white and black, light and dark. White and light is not good or evil. Black and dark is not good or evil. They just are what they are, right? So, the same way darkness and blackness has been made into a negative, you could do with white. When it snows and it gets real cold and it's a blizzard outside, it gets white. You can't see it when you're driving. That's not safe. That's a negative function of too much light and whiteness. When it's dark outside and you in a forest somewhere and you trying to walk or something you can't see, right? You might trip over something or fall. That's not a good outcome or something good happening to you, but that doesn't mean the darkness necessarily is bad. One balances the other. And I'm with you. It's hard. It hurts to know that we put so much inference on not being black, but everything else gets don't get talked about, or it's okay. It's made known some kind of way. It's okay, but black is always negative. You can't grow food in the soil without it being in complete dark, because certain roots can't be, most roots can't be in the light. Certain vegetables can't be in the light at all, like bean sprouts and stuff. They have to be grown in the dark. Healing happens at night in the dark, when that's when your melatonin is the highest and your body is able to regenerate itself and get rid of cancerous cells. If you're always in the light, you'll go crazy. But if you're always in the dark, you might go crazy too, because you have eyes, especially if they're working. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You need the balance. But so maybe if we can start to wean off of the dependency of having to believe black is bad.
But
Like,
that's the Moors, sister. That's the Moors. They're so big on that, you know. And we can go back to Kemet. We had the word Kem, which translates as black. Some people try to say, well, the word black didn't exist before, 15th century or whatever. I mean, they have all those talking points, and they're doing some anachronism and some fake fictional history, trying to claim that black people conquered Europe. I mean, it's just out of. I mean, it's all over the place, you know. But the Moorish thing, and the funny thing is that before the Nation of Islam, we had with the Moorish Science Temple of America. Some people say that Fah Muhammad was a member. Some people say that we can see him on one of the picture. You know, oh, we have Hassan. Oh, he has a webcam. Welcome, Hassan. Feel free to speak.
No, I don't want to interrupt. No, go ahead. Finish what you were
No,
saying.
no, I always prioritize the callers. So, oh, Colin has used his webcam. So, Colin, thank you for that. You'll be ready to speak just right after Hassan. So, go ahead, Hassan. Feel free to speak
Yeah,
if
I
you
didn't
want to
want to
say something.
interrupt. You were talking about
Yeah,
pseudo history and
yeah, but the most,
kind of
I feel like it's pseudo history, but feel free to add on that if
no.
you want,
I
or anything
mean,
else.
there were definitely Africans that were in Europe. We know about those people like who were instrumental in Europe, but were the people were there like black Asiatics or what they're talking about, and was Europe for most of its history ruled by black people? No. Um, but I think you were talking about Asar Imhotep a little bit of the.
Yeah, Sahimo fake the plagiarizer. Yeah, feel free to
He's a
speak.
plagiarizer. I didn't know that.
Oh, I can I will share the link in the chat. So if you have time and if you're interested, you can have a look. But yeah, he has plagiarized several authors in several different countries. Sorry, several
Well,
different
that would
languages.
be a
But
step up. That would be a step up
yeah,
for Asar because he usually talks about how ancient Egyptian is actually a Bantu language. Afro-Asiatic has never been reconstructed. Bantu hasn't been reconstructed. Very weird sort of claims from someone who claims to have a degree in computer programming or whatever he does, right? Um,
no, nobody has seen his degree so far. I haven't seen it, but
well, maybe
that was
he has it, but even if he
yeah,
does,
maybe, but
how
that's
does
still
how does
computer
that help
programming.
you?
Yeah.
How does that help you argue about linguistics and which language family should be grouped together,
Yeah,
right?
well, indeed, he doesn't have any degree in linguistics, and when I ask him the question, he wouldn't answer straight away. But I mean, he's just, I mean, just for those who don't know, the guy said
The god Allah is an indigenous African god.
Allah is an indigenous African god, and you see, I've shared the link here. I saw him a fake serial plagiarizer. So I mean, he's a clown. He's a clown. He's a real clown. He's a real clown, and he's just trying to discredit PhDs in linguistics, and he doesn't have a toilet paper in linguistics. So you know, but hold that thought, Hassan, please. Colin, thank you very much for using the
Hey,
webcam. Feel
what's
free to
up,
speak.
brother? Hey,
Yeah,
no,
feel
I
free.
made a mistake and typed that wrong. I ain't with no more than nothing.
Okay, okay.
I was trying to say what, like you said, all them dudes, they fake. They coming with fake scholarship. They online fooling people, talking all this crazy mess. Like we just blacks from America. That's what I just look at it as. What people are waking up as, because it was a lot of people from like the Caribbeans that was coming over here trying to tell black people from America who they was, where they come from, and then people got tired of that. So now everybody waking up and they mad that people are saying who they are. It's like I'm in Baltimore and we like a 65% Negro city. We didn't grow up with like Puerto Ricans and Dominicans, which I don't have no knock on, but it's just that's how it is down here. You know what I'm saying? So all our grandmothers is black, fathers black, like cousins is no mix. It's not diverse down here. So I feel what you saying. Like them New York guys, like with Sonetta and all them, they like hustlers, scammers. They was selling information. All that old information is played out and was false. That's the point I was coming from.
Hmm. And you know, Hassan, to jump on what you said, and thank you for your contribution, Colin Jones. Um, I agree that there were some black people in Europe, and the way I see it, the conquering or conquest of the Iberian Peninsula and some parts of Europe, it was just Muslims. And amongst the Muslims, we had some black soldiers or mercenaries. So usually I make the same analogy. If we go look in Iraq, or Iraq, some people pronounce Iraq, some people pronounce it Iraq, or even Afghanistan. Now they left Afghanistan right recently, but we had some black soldiers. We have their pictures, we have their footage,
Where
video
you
footage.
from, London?
Well, I was born in France. My parents are from Haiti, and I lived in England for a few years.
Oh, okay.
And so nobody's going to argue, nobody's going to claim, well, black people or black Americans conquered Iraq. We had some black soldiers amongst, members of the United States Army, and to me, it's the same. And as a matter of fact, if we look at the book, The Golden Age of the Moor, um, we have, I mean, we might have that drawing of two black Muslims playing chess, but when we see some army, most of the army are white people. Amongst those people, you have a few black people. So the whole Moorish claim of
Yeah,
black people conquering Europe, like, and I've asked that's the first time that I had called Sinetta's platform when Lord Alba was there and he was telling me
yeah.
stuff. And I said, can you
Another
give me,
persuader.
yeah, and I said, can you give me the two names of black kings, who black Moorish kings, and he gave me Bo Abdil and the other one I forgot. And I went to the Louvre Museum, and people can go on my channel if they know how to search within my channel.
Mm.
You have the statue, he looks completely Caucasian, So they I don't know about any. First of all, has anybody ever seen a black Moorish king?
Mm-mm.
You see, so that's the first thing, So
That's what I
some
just got off with the Sabir Bay. He a more. That's what he keeps saying. We this, we that. I'm like, how?
yeah, Sabia Bay, Tashtarik Bay, they're the same. They talk all that talk. I have yet to see a black Moorish king, and
Mm-hmm.
just they can show me some black people who call themselves Moors,
Right.
and who call other black people Moors as well.
Right.
And like you said, it's played out
Yeah.
information,
Mm-hmm.
played out information. I mean, that guy was on record when he talked with Cyrus and Seti. He said Moor means navigator.
Yeah.
you know so they will tell you that more means black, more means navigator, more means ruler, I self law and master, I self lord and master. The Moors, they're some of the kings of the linguistic gymnastic and linguistic acrobatics. But go
Yeah.
ahead, sister, go ahead, sister.
Let me know if I'm wrong, y'all, but I think I might get the connection now. So, what I'm starting to inference as the similarity between, okay, Moors and the indigenous is a set of people who are trying to assert they have a natural right to be somewhere or to move around a locality without specified legal permission of the currently occupying magistrate or government. That's basically what. Okay, so if that's the case, now I kind of see why people are trying to claim they're really hard on claiming that aspect because in theory, right? Oh, it makes a lot of sense. Like I'm a Moor, I can move around, I could go where I want to go. I'm indigenous, I belong here, I've been here, so you can't really tell me yada yada, and I have rights, and you came here and you caused the injury to me, so you definitely owe me.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, because I was when I was locked up, I seen all the Moors was going in. They was in the bullpen talking that mess. They was coming right back downstairs for 10 and 20 years, and all that. That stuff ain't working no courthouse. All that stuff mess they was talking. It's a shame. It's a headache for real because they don't know people waking up and they taught of that just that persuasion information. Sonetta platform. He the king of it. He the king of it.
Well, he has a very large platform, and he doesn't need to have pseudos on his platform. Like that Commissioner Deb dude, that's one of the most pseudo guy around. So I don't have anything against that dude personally, but he just doesn't listen. He's all over the place, and really, is more are like that usually. They think they deep. With the linguistic gymnastics and acrobatics. So nowadays we have this conscious community. Sanetta, I think, he has 175,000 subscribers. It's a very large platform. But
Mhm.
the problem is that somebody can just go on this platform and become a conscious community superstar. You
Yeah.
know, when I heard Sanetta asking our brother Smash if he wants to debate commission at that, I'm like, that you cannot compare a Ferrari to like a bike, you know. I mean, but it's okay. He's free
Yeah,
to do
yeah.
whatever he wants.
It's, I mean, they feeling it now because that money drying up. That's what it is. That trying to sell that information to people and get people confused. Which I try to tell son now that New York is a diverse city. New York got a whole bunch of different people in it, so they might look at them as us down here where I'm at when we not the same for real. But they be
Uh,
trying to make it. They
but
be trying to make it like go. You know what I'm saying? Like
I,
they speaking for all. Go ahead. What you saying?
I was gonna say I don't think the money's drying up for Sanetta. I think the money's
Man, shit. You ain't see, man. This chat look terrible, man.
no, he has when he's live streaming, he has hundreds of people in attendance, and so the money must be good. Yeah, he back then he used to sell the DVDs. He's not talking about selling DVDs no more. Besides the YouTube channel, he has the Patreon, so he's obviously doing good. He's obviously doing good. And that's good for him. That's good for him.
Yeah.
All I'm trying to say is that when he has Professor James Smalls, when he has Leonard Jeffries, he doesn't need to have a commission in debt. With 175,000 subscribers, but hey, he's free to do whatever he wants. It's all
Right.
good. That's his channel. That's his platform. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But the commission in debt is extremely pseudo. Like
Yeah.
I told brother JJ 7,000, for him to say that the hieroglyphic of the arm means Allah, that's extremely pseudo. And there's so many other things that he says is pseudo as heck. You know what I'm saying? And it's a shame.
Yeah.
When you have a large platform like that, you need to be a little bit selective. Now, him as a caller, as a caller, is cool, but him as a guest, for being there for 3 hours, what I'm saying, trying to talk about the meta, doesn't he say that the meta nature has not been deciphered as well? And that's a Walter Williams stuff. Walter Williams is like 90 something years old. I don't have anything against the dude, but that claim of the band of nature not being deciphered is just pseudo as heck. I mean, you mean
Yes.
to tell me Walter Williams? Some people call him Dr. Walter Williams. I never heard of him having a doctorate degree. I mean, the conscious community is so funny because they will use term for a person that the person himself doesn't use for himself. I read both
Mhm.
his books, the historical origin of Christianity and the historical origin of Islam. He didn't put doctor or PhD in his books, but the community for some reason they call him doctor. But anyway,
They are old
he's
New
right.
Orleans. That's all he is.
Well, he's right, but all the PhDs in the world are wrong.
Well,
I mean,
Mhm.
I mean, but they're
go ahead.
right. They're right to be skeptical of the PhDs, right? You have all the Flinders Petries out there, right? Who and a lot of Egyptologists today who are still currying um and basically racism. So people are responding to that and they're saying like, okay, instead of trusting this PhD, let's trust this person who's getting and you know what? A PhD doesn't make you right. A degree doesn't make you
I
correct.
agree. I agree.
But
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 mhm,
you don't magically get a degree once you say something which is correct. You have to
exactly.
go through the process. But I mean that's a bit of the danger because you know you do want people to be able to do research on their own and go to have resources or intellectual people to use as I don't know as a guide. You know what I mean? Because let's just say there's evidence that the hieroglyph for leg somehow means a lot. Okay, then we should be able to independently reproduce that ourselves. We shouldn't just have to point to Dr. Imhotep 34 from egyptsearch.com, right? We should be able to reproduce that. And then when it comes to the Moors, I don't blame people because there are figures like Abu Bakr ibn Umar. If you look at his Wikipedia page, there's definitely a black man, depicted. He was a general. He was very important. And I've also seen people make arguments about Abu Yusuf Yaqub al Mansur And if you go into like the granular, like which people in Africa, because Moor is an exonym. Nobody walked around calling themselves Moors, right? That's something that Europeans placed on them. The term blackamoor, a lot of times when Moors are depicted, they are depicted as black. Why? Is it because they were actually all black skinned? No, but some of them were black skinned, and to an extent, Europeans like to, after they got rid of the Moors, they like to think, oh, these are the darker, uncouth races. And then when it came to the transatlantic slave trade, all of the Africans that were Muslim, they just called them Moors. And so you can check on like slave records in Louisiana and find people who come from Moor slash Nar. I think Nar has something to do with like fire and how certain tribes would fight using fire, but um, it's an exonym. So yeah, a lot of people were Moors, but were they the historical people who ruled Spain and Iberia in general? You have to look to see if they are the specific tribes and ethnic groups that exist today who were a part of that. So I don't blame people on Moors. It's when they go into like we were Indians, things like that, are ancient Egyptians being Bantu, Islam and I mean, so like for example, Christianity. I think Shaka, you've made videos about some similarities. There are similarities between Christianity and different sort of ancient Egyptian beliefs, like Psalm 104 and the hymn to attend. Those definitely have similarities, right? But then people be like, okay, Horus was born on this day. There's a solstice, and um, so things can be like there's levels of pseudo is what I'm trying to communicate. You know what I mean? Allah being the leg hieroglyph is going to be very high up. Ancient Egyptian being Bantu is very high up. And those are the most dangerous people because once people start to believe in that, how do you get out of them? How do you get that
Yeah.
out of them? How do you shake them
Yeah,
out of that?
the arm, Howell, it's not the leg, but I agree with you. I call that high level falsehood. You know what I'm saying? And back to what you said about the Moors, uh, they didn't call themselves that. And the funny thing is that they like to say, "Oh, uh, we're not black, we're Moors. We need to deal with our nationality, blah blah blah." But that Ishmael Bey dude, who used to go by Ishmael Allah back then, who used to be a 5% and a more at the same time. When I asked him, "Do you have a passport?" He said yes. Then I asked him, "What is written in the nationality field of your passport?" He said more. And I kept asking him, I said, "Are you telling me that it says more in the nationality field of your passport?" He said, "Yes." I said, "Can you show and prove that?" He said, "If I have to, absolutely." So I got him. I got him then. And he was mad. And him and his Asiatic black man, they flagged my accounts. I lost two accounts with like 7,000 subscribers in total. The dude just lied live on air to the people. There's no passport on the planet Earth, to my knowledge, where in the nationality field it says more, you know. So they claim that they have a nationality. It's not recognized. It's make believe. Anybody that's born in America, the majority of them, if it doesn't say United States of America or whatever, it says United States something, it will be some other country. But please show me a passport that says more in the nationality field or Moorish in the nationality field. So they like to talk to fellow brothers in America. I mean that Ishmael Bey. I remember one time he said, "Well, even dogs have nationality. You have German shepherds and stuff like that." I'm like, what are you trying to prove, man? Those guys don't have a nationality. They claim they do. They don't. They don't have a nationality. There's a video I have where a guy talked about the Amex and more. He talked about we have a buzzer, a buffer, whatever to travel and stuff like that. And every now and then I have some comments or people will say, "Oh, I didn't understand what it's trying to say." I mean, but it's okay. I'll leave it there, man. I mean, people want to follow Tashrik Bay and Sabia Bay and all that. You know what I'm saying? By all means, they can do so.
Have you
Uh,
spoken to Asar Imhotep, or has he blocked you? Is he
I don't know
engaged?
if you've seen the video, but I called the platform of Willie Lynch Uja, you know, and as soon as I got on, I mean, if you want, I can play. Do you want me to? Did you see it, or do you want me to play it?
Play it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna play it so everybody can see. As soon as I got on the platform, I said I wanted to talk about what he said this year in 2022, because those guys, Uja, Willie Lynch Uja said, black meaning, can meaning black is a hypothesis. No one has demonstrated that. Both Uja, Willie Lynch Uja, and Osai Mufek said that on the walls, the ancient Egyptians are not black. The hair's black, but their body's not black. You know what I'm saying? And when he spoke to Smash Rockwell, he said, you cannot pull up, the can with the hair determinative. And he knew what I was going to bring. So he said, oh, in 2018, this is what I wrote in my book. But his stance has changed since 2018. You know what I'm saying? I mean, not 2018, 2014. My bad, 2014. That was 8 years ago. So just for the benefit of the court, I'm gonna play. There's gonna be some commentary, but it's all good. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. I'm gonna share the link in the chat first. Um, so pulled up on Asa and Wuja. They are still lying. Those guys are just ridiculous, man. I mean, for 3 hours, Smash and I, we just destroyed them for 3 hours. I mean, both of them were claiming that Chem is a title. Chem after a name is a title, So here's a link in the chat, and now I'm going to share the video.
Reach the non-linguistic degree quota. That's what it happened. So by the time Mboli came, we didn't reach the quota, and
All right.
myself. So we I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just want to acknowledge that we got Shaka and Dugu Kemet on here. I want to let him in immediately because I don't want him to be like other people that accuse me of leaving him in on hold and then want to unsubscribe and start crying and stuff. So welcome to the panel, Shaka and Dugu Kemet. What say you?
Yeah, greetings to Jahu, greetings to Asaf. Now, Jonathan Owens indeed, Smash Rockwell said that you left him on hold during the whole show, but I guess that's a different conversation. Now,
but that's a lie.
Actually, can't hear you, Shaka.
I was muting all the while. I was muted all the while. Smash, are you still there? Okay. Was this last night? It was actually. Yeah, that's a lie. Wow. But I was like, yeah, okay. I don't trust him. I don't trust him. They are disingenuous. They are lying. So I don't trust him. And yeah, thank you, Big. And I think he will probably say, oh, hold on. I hope you heard me when I was reading from Theophilo Benga. I think I've muted myself before I played. It was God. He was yes, go every
Yeah, but so
well, okay, that's fine. That's fine.
So you know, yeah.
That's
But wait, but you're here, and I let you on right away. So
yeah, of course. So
right.
I heard Asaf mentioning his 2014 argument, but why you two, both of you, act like this year in 2022? You went on talking about the hair determinative, like it's needed. I have Asaf on tape saying you cannot show it, put it up. That would end the argument. Have you forgotten? I saw. Have you forgotten that you said that? And Netanyahu has ended the argument. He has shown the hair determinative. There's no need to be so condescending and arrogant and disrespectful, saying that people don't read and don't understand. Asar, with all fairness, don't you remember saying that this year?
Bro, I just read it in 2014.
You see my facial expression? I come in mentioning that the dude is talking about 2014 and asking, don't you remember saying that this year in 2022? And his reply is, bro, I just read it in 2014. I said, Asar, with all fairness, don't you remember saying that this year? And he replies, bro, I just read it in 2014. I mean, in terms of syntax, that sentence is not even accurate, but I don't need to play the whole thing. I've shared the link in the chat so you can hear the stuff. Um, but this is the video where I make some commentary. People can go on their channel if they want to. I forgot the title of their channel, of their video. But yeah, the guy actually told me later on, do you want me to read it again so you understand? So you can understand? I've been very condescending. And I told him, no, I don't want you to hear it because that's 2014. I'm talking about 2022. He still went and read it. You know what I'm saying? So then at one point, uh, he said, you know, you're not making any sense. That question doesn't make any sense. So I said, okay, all right, I'm going. I tried. I'm going. And as I left, the Willie Lynch Wuja, you know, which is a hemofix bottom chick, you know, he started talking about Iran, and I did that the last time. And for those who don't know, the last time that was on Smash platform, the last stream lasted 6 hours. I spoke with the dude for 3 hours when he made a fool out of himself. I didn't make a fool out of him. He made a fool out of himself. And at one point, you can hear me say, you know, hey, bro, this is 6:50 a.m. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I'm gonna leave you now. Uh, but later on, you know, Asar came in and he said the same thing. I told him, you're a fraud. You've been lying. You're not a linguist. And I bounced. And then they tried to say that I ran after speaking for 3 hours. So apparently, it looks like they must give me an authorization for me to leave. You know what I'm saying? So here, that's just in a nutshell, you know. So I try to dialogue with them. I try to communicate with them, but they are lame, they are liars, they are cowards. They're not pulling up anywhere unless on, you know, Batty Garfield's channel. And Garfield's another fraud as well, who said that he has a bachelor's degree in history. He has never shown it. Chris Harris said that he doesn't have a bachelor's degree. And besides that, on his own book, Garfield wrote that he's been a student of biblical history for the last 30 years. And if we make the calculation, it means that he started when he was 9 years old. So those guys have a lot of things in common about being frauds, liars, and you know, yeah, I will leave it there. You know, I don't want to be too long-winded.
Didn't MLK get his graduate from college, or was he get his doctorates very young? I'm kidding, but yeah, no, I think that
Himofix said that he's going to enter a PhD program in Egyptology.
Asar Imhotep is.
He said he's about to enter to get into a PhD program in Egyptology. He said that.
What program would let him in?
But,
I mean,
I don't know, because, you know, uh, if you already have a PhD, they might let you just go on a PhD program in another field, you know. But I don't think he has a PhD. I first heard him say that he's going to actually get his PhD in computer science or computer programming, whatever that is. That whatever field he's allegedly has some degrees in. He said he has a degree in computer science, but he didn't specify which degree it was. You know what I'm saying? I mean, bottom line, the dude's a liar. He might have some degree, or maybe it's a certificate, you know, in computer science, but in linguistic, he wanted people to believe that he had some qualification. You know, as a matter of fact, he said just not long ago that he's actually. Uh, uh, I'm sorry, Imhotep 360 wrote, Hotep Shaka Garfield does have a degree in biblical history. It's from Sinetta University. But To make the long story short, Asahim Ofek has stated that he has a degree in computer science. He didn't say which degree it was, and that's about it. In linguistics, it doesn't have anything at all. You know.
Well, they always argue and they bring up this argument like someone like Christopher Ehret, who's very well respected in his field,
Mm,
right? Um,
mm.
does not have a degree in linguistics.
No, but check this out. Hold on. Uh, he that 3 hours and we spoke, he
Hmm.
tried to do that with Theophilo Benga, and he stated live on the air, Theophilo Benga doesn't have a degree in linguistics. 2 days later, I quoted the San Francisco University, where we have the degrees of Theophilo Benga, and he has some degrees in linguistics. As a matter of fact, Willie Lynch Wuja on his own website, he has that as well. He copied and pasted, you know what I'm saying? So now, what he's been doing lately is saying, well, Theophilo Benga does have a PhD in linguistics or master's degree in linguistics. So he's changed. And he said, okay, what he has is some certificate, you know. So first of all, he has some formal training. I'm talking about Theophilo Benga. Second of all, Theophilo Benga is recognized by his peers in the field of linguistics. Herod is
So
recognized
is
in his peers. He
also
talked
that's
about Greenberg as well. Greenberg is recognized by his peers.
100% true.
Exactly. Sahim Ofek doesn't have a toilet paper in linguistics. He's not recognized by his peers in linguistics. So that's a huge difference. He's being disingenuous. He's being a snake. I mean, he's not how many paper has he submitted to a linguistic journal?
Never, never. I mean, the thing is though, is that he wants to keep the fight in linguistics. I remember he debated. I forget the guy is like Fulani and like Black American. I forget his name.
Dr. Obadele Combo?
No, no, no. This is a younger person.
Okay.
But yeah, he had a debate with Asada Imhotep, and
Oh,
he was,
Netaneb.
huh?
Are you talking about Netaneb?
I'll message you about it. I forget this guy's name, but he's like Fulani and Black American,
Hmm.
and he had a debate with him, on this whole Bantu question. And it's like you want to argue language, which is strange. In order to argue language, you have to basically say ignore every academic on this subject, which is not a good place to start. Um, but even when you go beyond language, you have to look at look at the culture of this place, right? Look at the genetics of this place. Look at the archaeological sites. What archaeological sites can you point to that shows this sort of the emergence of Bantu language in East Africa and like how it spread out to all these other places? Because we know Egypt had contact with other places in Africa. It wasn't like Egypt was on an island on its own. It had contacts with Punt. That's one of the most, it also had contacts with places like Yam, Kush for very long, right? And so you would find evidence of these, Bantu languages or Bantu peoples still there today. And you don't.
Hold on. I just want to make one thing clear. Sahim Ofek has stated for a while that Niger Congo or some Bantu language is closer to the Metanetan than the Coptic, and saying that is extremely flawed because PhDs in Egyptology will almost unanimously state that the Coptic is the latest phase or the latest stage of the Medu Neter. You know, so to claim that some other African languages or family language phylum is closer than the Coptic is just weird in itself. I mean, at one point he was talking about the Sumerians, well, like a Niger Congo speaker or Bantu speaker, that the Sumerians are black, and we can determine that with the linguistics. And he was quoting that what's the name? Hermstein, whatever that dude is, who apparently is not even a linguist either, and now his main premise of Quebec, meaning riparian zone, is inspired by Jean-Claude Mboli, who is not a linguist either. So I
Mm.
mean, that dude, anything that's pseudo, he roll with it.
The guys Ngozi or Gozi, that's who I'm
Oh,
talking about.
Ngozi, okay, Ngozi is an African American. He's from
Yeah.
I think he's from Chicago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. His
Yeah.
dad is from
So,
like his dad or mom is from like
yeah,
Night.
he
He's both. He's
stated
both. Yeah.
indeed that he has some Fulani ancestry or something like that. But I
Mhm.
haven't heard that discussion or that debate. But yeah, Ngozi was part of the Amin Ra squad. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm. Oh,
Oh,
our
sister,
people
go
say
ahead, sister, go ahead.
I'm a dip now.
Mm.
Can I make a shameless plug?
No,
Please.
feel free, sister.
So, um, I'm a vocal musician. So I have some music I just put out not too long ago on my website, thenewbigbang.com. So I just want to ask people to go there. And if you like it, follow me on, it's a Bandcamp website. And if you like the song or any other song, download them. But yeah, I'm trying to really trying
Share
to.
the link with us, sister. Share the links with us in the chat.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's very important, you know, very
Okay.
important.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
So yeah, I'm just trying to do what I can to try to contribute in a positive way. I don't I focus more on like philosophy and um like more recent history because I deal with like students and everything and contemporary stuff. So I'm sorry I don't have anything to add on this part. But it's interested. I'll keep listening. I'm just gonna jump off. But yeah, hopefully, my music and what I've said today can, help people get more unified. And I also wanna tell people to go to producejustice.com and explore that book on there because it's helped me a lot to minimize contact with people I don't agree with. You know what I'm saying? So I don't waste my own time and waste other people's time and just to like try to calm it down or whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of fake stuff going around, in the day and age of the internet, and people can pretend so and say a lot to do damage. So I guess really the last thing I'm gonna say is when you hear something, just think, how is this constructive? How does this do something, positive or make any situation better? How is this leading to a good outcome? But yeah, thanks, Shaka.
oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
I'll talk to you soon.
Yes, in it.
Peace. All right,
Okay,
later.
later. All right. Yeah, feel free, brother Hassan.
Oh yeah, no, I was just
Oh,
gonna.
but hold on, Hassan. Are you the one who used to call before?
We've talked before. Yes, I am that same.
All right. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. Because I was like, okay, okay, well,
Mhm.
okay. Feel free,
Yeah.
brother.
Um. So like, yeah, in that discussion, it's like if you're arguing about people being somewhere historically, right? You want to have the strongest argument possible. Like, so often when people want to argue that, like, okay, ancient Egypt was a Levantine civilization. The hat thing that they hang their hat on is that 2017 Abu Sir study. And if that was really a strong argument, that paper, by the way, argues that Europeans of today, right, and Anatolians and Turks and all these people of today are actually closer to the ancient Egyptians than the modern people of Egypt. For some reason, the modern people of Egypt are okay with that. I don't know why they would be okay with that, but they are. But if you had such a strong argument, you wouldn't be dependent upon one study or one type of evidence. You'd have the language, you'd have the cultural anthropology, you'd have the physical anthropology, you would have the genetics. It all should align up to your picture. And if there is a branch of evidence that doesn't line up with what you're talking about, then you need to come up with some sort of crazy explanation, or I'm sorry, convincing explanation, or right, you need to modify like what you're saying. Like, I don't know, maybe it's more heterogeneous than you thought. Maybe it changed over time. But he doesn't want to do any of that because linguistics is this thing where like nobody has a degree in linguistics, so nobody can really argue with you. You can just say, "Hey, these are shown to be the same, and this is the way that you use the historical comparative analysis." And I got in a fight with him about the historical comparative analysis. When you're talking about
Oh,
historical,
you spoken with him?
yes, with Asar Imhotep, yes,
Which platform was it?
on YouTube, on
Was
YouTube.
it the Seshu YouTube channel, or was it his own YouTube channel?
It was, I believe, it was his own YouTube channel. Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay, I get it. Did you hear what he said to Dr. Obade Kambo, who is a PhD in linguistics, about reconstructing the Yoruba?
What did he say? That it hasn't been done?
Okay, I gotta play it.
He always says it's never been
Uh,
done.
First of all, let's hear him say that he studied physics and he had formal training in linguistics, just lying his behind off.
Between a law in linguistics and a law, for example, physics, is that with a long.
Are you a physicist? Do you study physics, for example?
I do study physics and I study
Okay.
science. And so,
Okay. Have you studied linguistics formally?
Yes, I have.
Okay.
So both first lie
You see how we laugh?
until proven otherwise. But check this out. That's the worst here. That for someone who claimed to be a linguist, listen to what he said.
Not only that, but he hasn't done a reconstruction for Middle Egyptian.
I understand.
And I'm saying that is an incorrect and it's not a very good order of operations. So you're going to.
I don't see a reconstruction of Yoruba in your work or a con.
How would I reconstruct Yoruba and it's spoken right now? How does that make any sense to you?
Because that's my point.
It's spoken right now. And what I did is I used IPA because Yoruba has its own orthographic system.
It's a convention for sounds. These are all symbols. That's the whole point of writing. They're just symbols to represent sounds. We understand that. The issue is that it's not attested in terms of a living.
So this is what I'm hearing as a lack of understanding. What you just said, you said I didn't reconstruct Yoruba. I wouldn't need to reconstruct Yoruba. I wouldn't need to reconstruct Akan. He doesn't need to reconstruct Somali. He also doesn't need to reconstruct Hausa. But what he does need to reconstruct is the one that I'm saying that he did not reconstruct.
Here's the question.
Please, just hold on 1 second because.
I understand. Believe me, I understand what you're saying. I'm asking you this.
Then let me make this last point, please. Just let me make this last point. So you're saying that I didn't reconstruct a language that is attested right now. You don't reconstruct languages that are attested right now. You write them down.
So there it is. And Dr. Obadele Cambon, Kambon, he used to be an African American, and he decided to relocate to Ghana, and he's teaching over there. He's a professor over there, the University of Accra. He has a PhD in linguistics. He earned his PhD in 2012. So he was talking about Jean-Claude Mboli, but him not having done certain reconstruction. And Asahim Ofek, wanted to defend that guy so much. He replied, well, I don't see in your work any reconstruction of Yoruba or Khan, which is like, I mean, and then we can hear the voice of Dr. Campbell, who's really, really always, soft-spoken. But at that point, when you talk too much crap, you have to raise your voice and be like, and he said, how does that make any sense to you? You know what I'm saying? And we can hear him talking like, he's basically trying to tell a PhD in linguistics how to do his job. You know what I'm saying? And then he's like, let me ask you a question. And I was asked not to put the full conversation. I had the full conversation, but somebody who stated that he's close to Campbell asked me not to have it up. So out of respect, I made it private. I just shared that excerpt there. But the video, this is basically two conversation, so it's like an hour and a half or something like that in total. But you can hear him say, okay, let me ask you that question, and he's going to keep going on about a question and act like, oh, you're not answering my question. And they love to do that. Him and his bottom chick, Willie Nishuja, they love to ask you a particular question and act like, because you did not answer the question, then
they did that to me.
Yeah, like for example, the willingness which I'll claim that Cam is a title after a name. After 3 hours, I said, okay, so you can demonstrate that. And he said, well, just like you cannot demonstrate that Cam is an adjective. So not only he says a Cam meaning black is a hypothesis, but the dude went on and said that Cam is not an adjective. And we have the PhDs in Egyptology who will tell you that Cam is an adjective. I mean, those guys, they're just weird, man. All of that is because of this book that they wrote, this pamphlet, where they argue that Kemet means riparian land / riparian country. That's why they go yeah.
Riparian? What is riparian?
Like a place of water, it's like that's their book. Like, their book is their notes. I mean, do I have the audio there?
I think they just don't care about being.
Look, check this out.
And we didn't even really, matter of fact, I didn't even really make any arguments in the text about Kemet other than laying down our ultimate meaning for it. I didn't make the argument for it. the word Kemet and showing how I came to the conclusion.
This is Simon Mofek himself. And before that, he said those were our notes because he was going to have a discussion or slash debate with Dr. Mario Beatty and Reggie. You know, Ned was supposed to be there, but he couldn't make it. They have some notes, and they basically put the notes in a book format and sold it to the people. You know what I'm saying? So he said himself he did not make the argument. He did not show how he came to the conclusion. And this is the thing that they love to say. Oh, how did so and so come to that conclusion? Oh, so and so didn't do the work. So I mean, this guy he was hyped up for a good decade, but back in 2010, I knew he was pseudo. You know, and I wrote 2 articles about the dude. You know, but because back then he used to claim that there were Hebrews in Kemet and those Hebrews were black. Then not long ago, he backtracked and I was like, I even made a video about that. So you see, he used to teach they were black. Now he showed some depiction and he said, well, there was not black. He said, those are what you would call white folks. But when we spoke after that 3-hour discussion with Wuja, he came at the end. I told him, you know, you used to teach that they were black, you know, and then he said, well, yeah, they were black. So I made a video called, you know, I forgot the title, but I can tell you the title if I go on my channel. I've uploaded it not long ago. I have the transformer.
Whatnot.
Hold on. I have the transformer. Yeah. Were Hebrews black or white? Tale of a flip-flopping transformer. Because basically what that dude did is back in 2010, he said that the Hebrews were black. Then, like a year or two ago, he said, no, those people, they are not black. And then now, once again, he's saying that they're black. I mean, these guys are flip flopper. But I'm sharing the link in the chat, you know, for the benefit of whoever might be interested in hearing that. I mean,
he also said that like he was also trying to make comparisons between linguistics and mathematics when we spoke. And I have a background in mathematics, and I mean, there's a thing called mathematical linguistics, but that's not what he was doing, and so he was dependent upon essentially trying to say that the historical comparative analysis, right, is just basically like a function where you can take some operation in one language and then get an output in another language, and that will show you that the two languages are connected, which is not at all what historical comparative analysis is. It's talking about like how people even like acquire the languages, like how language spreads, like what Christopher Ehret does. Christopher Ehret, for example, looks at the ancient Egyptian word for cattle pen. You also find it in Nubian and Nilo-Saharan languages. And so through his historical comparative analysis, he talks about like how, you know, we can show that cattle were domesticated by indigenous Africans. And the domestication of cattle is connected historically to the spread of proto-Saharan Sahelian languages. And that Nilo-Saharan languages and Sahelian languages, which eventually would become like Afro-Asiatic languages, were at once united in the unification of these languages and the dispersal of these languages, right, is predated by the domestication of cattle. That's an example of like and I'm not a linguist. I just read these papers, but it has nothing to do with like, oh, we can, like, you can do that with any language. You can find similarities, like Japanese and a lot of, I'm assuming, Igbo words in the Nigerian language, like Tamachi, Akechi, right? Those sounds sound very similar to sounds that you hear in Japanese. Now, there's one, if you look at most of the languages, the sounds do not sound at all alike. But I mean, finding similarities, you can do that because there are so many words, right? And human beings can only make a finite number of sounds.
But
you know, not at all.
You know what you're saying? Have you heard him talking about the English word fly?
No. Flaw
okay,
or fly?
Well, brace yourself, buckle up. It's gonna be 31 seconds long. Check this out.
Fly in English is the same word, except we don't have the prefix sound in there in the word fly. And so the word, the phoneme R is now L in English, and the P sound is F, in English. It's just simply the word. It's a very old word. It's all in Indo-European. It's in every African language.
So the KPR, that's the Middle Dutch word keper, which is really keper, but the h sound doesn't exist in French or in English, so most people pronounce it keper. It's that the triliteral is the scarab or dung beetle. It's a glyph that appears very often. Yes, yeah, we have a god we have a nature called keperi indeed. So he's here telling people that the English word fly derives from keper. That's what he did. So
yeah, he's desperate. I don't know what he's desperate to show, but like, no, people there, like for example, nature, even words like nature and netter, because netter, they are referring to like sort of invisible forces of nature, right? When they're referring to these netter, I think people argue linguistically that you can't connect those words, even though they sound similar. There are loan words that we get from Egyptian, like papyrus, I suppose, and paper are connected. But even if words sound alike and they sound like they have the same origin, it doesn't mean that they have the same ultimate origin. We do have like the word mummy somehow comes from ancient Egyptian. I don't even know how. Um, but like just because words sound alike doesn't even mean that they're alike. But when words are completely different, um, I don't know what's being said. And like I have no problem with people who are geographically distant having the same cognates. Like for example, there are tribes in Ethiopia called the Gumas people who are Nilo-Saharan, and then there's the Songhai in Mali, and they have the same word or cognate for hippopotamus. And you can argue why. It's because a lot of people were in North Africa when it was green, and then they spread out in different directions. That's perfectly fine. And so words for hippopotamus and all the other sort of flora and fauna that you find in the green Sahara, of course, these languages that are Nilo-Saharan, like the Songhai proper language and the Gumez's language, would have similar words historically if they were in fact in the same place for that thing. That's fine. I don't care if they're like super distant, but you actually have to show how they're the same and why they're the same. And I feel like Asar doesn't care and his audience doesn't care because like people have been lied to. They often gaslight, and society takes every little thing that they can. Like for example, King Tut, he was R1B, right? And then everyone started to run articles about how he's European, therefore, right? Even though the 18th dynasty was known to come from the south.
Yeah. What's it?
When they looked at the mummies of the 18th dynasty, they compared them to Nubians, right? They were extremely prognathous. They had dichocephaly. Like their facial features from a physical anthropological standpoint and their limb proportions and all of that lump them with other sort of tropical Africans. That's very much well known. But they see R1B, and you get all of these National Geographic papers talking about, oh, how he could have been Western European. What? Right? And then we found out that R1B is also found in the Sahel. Its highest prominence is in like Cameroon, right? In some northern or western part of Cameroon in the Sahel. And so now they're quiet. No articles about it, no articles about the possibility. Could he have been from Cameroon? No, it would have been stupid to say he was from Cameroon. But what's even dumber than saying that he was Cameroonian is saying that he's Western European. When the Egyptians didn't have contact with Western Europeans, I don't think until like the modern times, right? Like because Greeks and Italians, right? The Romans and the Greeks, they came after the time of King Tut by like 1,000 years, but they're also not Western European. They're quote unquote Mediterranean. The Western Europeans were, called barbarians and Visigoths and all of this by Italians and Romans. They weren't coming over and conquering Egypt and becoming pharaohs in Egypt. So when you're up against that, I do understand why somebody will go the other direction and say, I need to address, ignore all sort of academia because they're all white people and they're all, full of it. I totally understand that, but it does more harm than good because you'll have someone like you, Shaka, and you'll probably be, talking about something, and then some Arab or white person is like, "We was Kangs, we was Kangs, we was Kangs," and sort of just mocks it, using the idiocy of some of these people who want to say that, um, I don't know, Levantine people were originally black. The Levantine people were black. They actually spoke Niger Congo C or something like that. Like, but
Well, it's many, if not most, people of the conscious community who claim that the people of the Levant were black. One of the things they like to say is that everybody was black first. So but I had a video called "White Supremacy Black Awakening,"
mhm.
and a lot of people, gave me a lot of heat when I released that video, like a decade ago. But my argument, and I use physical evidence, I use artifacts, for different museums in different countries, as much as the written documentation. And when we look at their phenotype from the standard of Ur, I've been pronouncing it Ur, but it's actually It's UR. The standard of which is in the British Museum, that's 2500 BC, and I work my way down until more recent time, and consistently, those people of Mesopotamia, Akkad, Sumer, the Levant, Arabia, even South Arabia, Yemen, Canaan, Syria, they were white skinned Caucasoid type consistently.
Even south of Yemen.
Well, that's from the Louvre Museum. Now, I don't know if do you know how to search within it? Okay, it's better to share because people will not go and check. So, um,
Because
but
I
I'll
mean, phenotypically, because I've heard a lot of arguments from different people. I've heard Arabs say, "Hey, look, the people from the south of Yemen, they just look that way. They're not mixed. That's what just Arabs look like."
the people of Yemen, they are typically, darker than the people of the northern
Mhm.
part. But for those who don't know, when I talk about searching within a channel, like that's my channel, and there on the right there, you have search. Now, sometimes if people use a mobile phone or tablet, you might have an arrow. If it doesn't, if the screen is too large for the device, you might have an arrow. But if you keep clicking that arrow, you have that um, search icon. So then, if I'm going to put South Arabia. I don't remember exactly the title. Well, there it is. Pre-Islamic South Arabia. Then I've put black or white. So here we can just. I'm going to share the link. Share the link in the chat. I have to let that advert go. So pre-Islamic Saudi Arabia, black or white. And one of the things I like to say now as well, we can alter
You
his
can skip the
phenotype.
ad, by the way. You can skip. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to. I'm gonna share the link in the chat. There it is. So everybody has it. There, it's in the chat. So
let's see here. It's going to be like a 4-hit combo, something like that. Okay. So this is your Asiatic Black Men Fair. Here's a reference. Okay, third century BC. Okay, South Arabia. But this one is clearer, isn't it? Now, come on now, Asiatic Black Men, where you are? Okay, hold on. Yes. Okay. Asiatic Black Men. Is that your ancestor? Is that Yaqub? Is that the first leader of the tribe of Shabazz? Who's that? Anyway. Funerary statue of Ama Ali of the clan of the Dara. Oh damn! What's this look? I told you about EILEL, but anyway, first century BC, Yemen. Yes, Yemen, South Arabia. There it is. You have some inscription there, so all of your linguists can do some breakdown if you want. Okay, we're gonna turn. There's another two. All right. Oh, okay, that's the way you get down, Asiatic Black man. All right, I see. I see. Let's say it's a head, most likely, or it's so what I say a bit. And you have Asiatic Black man.
see this one right there. You have people in Iraq, in Iran. They look like that. You know, now some people will argue we cannot tell the phenotype with those statues. I'm like, okay, fine. Even from Kemet, we have paintings of those different individuals. Or sea people. So people are free to look at the video, White Semites Black Awakening. It's in the description of this video and other videos. It's not the most entertaining video ever, but I make my way up once again from 2500 BC to more recent time, and consistently those people didn't have the Negroid phenotype at all. They had the Caucasoid phenotype, and what some people have been trying to do. I don't know if you've seen that. They show some so-called coils and try to say those are black people. They try to say that with some uh, uh, alleged depiction of
Like
Jews.
Akkad's braids or his dreads or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, Bruno Korashidi, he showed that. He said this is the oldest depictions of Jews, but he has transited now, so I'm going to try to be diplomatic. But I've shown several depictions of people from Iran and other places, but mainly from Iran, Persia, let's say, and we have the so-called knots, so-called coils, but it's at the end. But from the top, it's we can but you know what? I can show better than I can tell. I can show you better than I can tell. Uh, I can show you better than I can tell you. If I put kinky, oh no, they lied to you. They lied to you. They lied to you. There it is. They lied to you. There it is.
How to take a normal.
Gonna skip the ad.
You need to get ad block.
You have this so-called.
Come again?
There's this thing called ad block. It's free, and you'll never get an ad on YouTube again.
For real?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
it might work now, but they'll find a work around it. This is for sure.
No, it's been a while. It's been like
Greetings.
years. It's worked.
This
All right.
artifact is from the Louvre Museum, Paris, France. And I'm broadcasting live. Well, no, it's not a live streaming, but I am there. I am filming. But look at the phenotype.
So you see
Look at
here,
the hair there.
you can see
See
the
the
hair
texture?
straight, like
It's funny
Caucasian hair.
because you can see that the hair is
No,
definitely not
no, those are
kinky,
just
and at
waves,
the
Shaka.
bottom
Those are just
you
waves.
have this so-called.
So if they are waves, do you think those are black people?
I'm joking. I'm joking.
But anyway, at the bottom we have the so-called knots or kinky hair, whatever. So nobody's gonna have straight hair at the top and then kinky hair at the bottom. You know what I'm saying? But anyway, it's just for the record.
Yeah, I think that part of the phenomenon, like a lot of people, like and respect this scholar. So I'm never going to denigrate this scholar, but like Chikanta Diop, who was very much well prepared. I don't think anyone at UNESCO could say that that man wasn't prepared to show down. And honestly, the people he was going up against were less prepared because he has to go against the entirety of academia, right? Whereas their positions are just taken for granted. It's taken for granted that the Egyptians came from a dynastic race. They had to come from the Levant or somewhere. Maybe they came from the south of Yemen. But that was just taken for granted for so long that they didn't need to work hard to prove any of that, right? And so Chika Anta Diop did a lot of research in the way of like showing, oh, this is an indigenous black civilization. But that wasn't enough for Chika Anta Diop. Now he had to prove that they came from this wine stock, the stock which is important to him for God knows what reason, that connects them to Bantu people. And I think that the whole sort of first of all, Bantu is not a term that
I'm sorry. You should. You mentioned Bantu when you talked about the people of ancient Egypt.
I believe he argued that their language was connected to Bantu languages. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I must have missed that. I'm not denying that, but I must have missed that.
Yeah. He was from the Wolof or something similar to that.
He was Senegal. Wolof is like the main language in Senegal.
And so he tried to show that their languages were connected with other sort of African languages outside of the Afro-Asiatic family. Was it specifically
Yes.
Bantu? I
Yes,
forget.
he made comparison with the Wolof.
Oh, with Wolof
Yes.
specifically. Okay. So I mean
Yes.
that's that's going into that direction. Because Wolof is what language family would Wolof fall under?
I'm just having a look right now, but I don't think that's Bantu. No, that's the French
Would it
one.
be
I'm gonna put.
Niger Congo A?
Hold on, Wolof. I'm gonna put language.
Yeah, it's Niger Congo A.
Yes, yes, indeed, yes, Niger Congo. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I apologize. So not necessarily
No, no problem, no
Bantu.
problem.
I mean,
Mm.
the idea is, I get the idea is that he wants to connect it. It has to be connected to a certain type of black people. You know what I mean? And uh, I feel like that's the start of seeds of what you see now, where like now they're arguing it's Bantu, and these people don't differentiate between Niger Congo A and B. They believe, oh, it's all in the Niger Congo
Mm.
family.
Well, I mean, the thing is that that Osahimo fake dude. He talks about. I mean, there's a Bilolo, Mubon being Bilolo, who I think has some credentials in the field. And they know each other. They've been in communication. I think they even wrote a book together or something like that. Um, but to make the long story short, anything that Osari Mofek say should be taken with a grain of salt. He's not qualified. He's not recognized by the peers in linguistics. He's been saying a lot of weird claims. I mean, earlier I played just one when he said Allah is an indigenous African god. I mean, who's gonna argue that besides this guy? But besides that, he said also that Allah is in the Egyptian text. Just check this out.
Allah, and this is where I would disagree with Brother Shaka, is actually in the Egyptian text.
He said that Hebrews are African people.
These Hebrews, saying come from and who they are specifically, because based upon my research, these are African people.
He said that Hebrew is an African language.
This is how we know that the Hebrews, first of all, you got to understand that Hebrew is an African language.
He said that Hebrew is cognate with Yoruba.
Then when you do a linguistic analysis, you understand that the Hebrew language is cognate with the Yoruba language.
So really, if I had to place him in a category, I'll place him in the category of Egyptian adept. It's just more articulate than Egyptian adept, but he's as pseudo as Egyptian adept. I don't know a single person who makes such crazy claims as Allah is an indigenous African god, Allah is in the Egyptian text, the Hebrews are African people, the Hebrew language is an African language, and the Hebrew language is cognate with the Yoruba language. I mean, this is like 5 fingers of death already.
It's reactionary. It's all reactionary to what people have done to the history of Africa. Right? Like, because Africa's now.
I'm sorry, I don't understand. I don't understand.
So, like,
You're saying
Africa's now partially Muslim. So people are going to justify their connection to Islam.
Yeah, but he's not a Muslim. He's a former Hebrew Israelite.
He's
that's
all of those things, though, right? Like these.
No,
these
he's not. No, he's been because I disagree with your stance that your claim that it has to do with somehow somewhere Islam or the fact that parts of Africa is Islamized. He's just him being pseudo, him being all over the place, and he's been doing that. Yeah,
but here's the sort of logic that underpins that, right? Is that Africa, right? Indigenous African religions are not very popular today. There are still some people who like practice some sort of syncretism with Christianity in their native religion, with Islam in their native religion. But they're very, like, a lot of people do not practice their native religions as they were even 500, 600 years ago, right?
Indeed.
And so in order to be like, I am black conscious, I am African, I am pan-African, I'm pro-African, I love my Africanness, but also be a Muslim or a Christian or a part of the Abrahamic family together, you now have to recontextualize those Abrahamic beliefs and faiths inside of Africa. And the easiest way to do that is be like, well, actually, these deities were native to Africa, and these other people repackaged them and then sent them back to us. You know what I mean? And like that's a huge project that people do.
Yeah, but he doesn't say that. He will say that's based on his research. That's like linguistic work. He will not argue that I'm trying to do that because we have to contextualize Africans being into the Abrahamic belief system. I
Mhm.
mean, there's no logic in his reasoning. The guy is just pseudo. It's just pseudo as heck. I mean, we heard him talking about, he didn't see any reconstruction of Yoruba and Akan, some living languages. You know what I'm saying? And that alone shows the dude is a clown. I mean, and he's having a hard transition. I don't know if you've seen a video where it was dissing, several people. This guy talked about people who have master's degree and PhDs. He said this is very narrow. It's very basic. You know what I'm saying? He was talking
Mhm.
about Dr. Obade Campbell. He talked about Dr. Sandro Caposcici. Both of them have a PhD in linguistics. And he's like, oh, they haven't reconstructed anything, as if he reconstructed anything. I mean, which other group of people will have a person that doesn't have any degree in a field and will diminish and validate and criticize people who have a PhD in that said field? It's only the black community where I see that at. I've yet to see that in any other
They
community.
deserve it. The PhDs deserve it. I'm not gonna like not those PhDs specifically. They don't deserve it. But I think that um, look at for example, the 2017 Abusir mummy study. I'm sure you've heard of it. I'm sure if you've engaged on debates about ancient Egypt, you've heard of it.
I'm not familiar with that one, but I heard you
Okay.
mention it earlier.
Okay, so it's the study that argues that the current African DNA you find in modern Egyptians is basically all from the slave trade, and that modern Egyptians are more African, meaning sub-Saharan African, than ancient Egyptians were. And ancient Egyptians were similar to Turks, Levantine people, Greeks, and other Levantines. Right.
Well,
So
I mean, to say that the modern Egyptian has some genes, that comes from slave trade, I'm like, where did they get that from? Like, you know,
well, I mean, like there is a history of like a slave trade in Egypt, but the whole thing about the study is that they had three full genomes of three mummies from one site in Egypt. What site in Egypt? From northern Egypt during
of
the
course, the
Roman.
Delta area,
Yeah,
as
yeah,
usual.
or you know who settled in that area,
Yeah.
right? During the Roman period, and even in the own article that is written, they say we don't even know who these three individuals are. We can't confirm their identities. It's literally in the paper, right? And they also add like, hey, if we tested Egyptians from other southern sites, maybe we'd find that they have more sub-Saharan DNA, and so we have to change our thesis and all. And it's like all of these sort of caveats at the end of the paper, but the paper itself in media, right, has been portrayed to definitively prove once and for all to settle the question of the race of ancient Egyptians, and that's how they ran with it. And PhDs are doing this. They're begging questions and doing research that they know is sort of deeply flawed and presenting it in a way which is not responsible. And someone like Asar Imhotep, he doesn't seem to be. He's not getting paid for this, right? And he's not presenting himself as a PhD, which I respect. And so I hold them to a
He's
higher.
presenting himself as a linguist. He said that like a week or two ago. He said, I'm a linguist.
That's terrifying. But like I hold them to a higher standard than I would Asar or Imhotep. They are creating Asar or Imhoteps, right? And so yeah, I think that PhDs do deserve to get some tomatoes thrown at them when they do stupid things because they are hurting their credibility.
Yeah, but hold on. We're talking about Dr. Obadele Campbell and Dr.
No, not
Sandro
him, not
Capucci.
him. No,
Okay,
no,
all right.
no, not at all,
But
Doc.
when it comes to the DNA reports and studies, I'm it might be PhDs, but I don't really think it's Egyptologists that do those stuff most of the time. You know, because it will most likely be some geneticists, that would do this kind of studies. But I'm not tripping on that. I have two videos called Black Ancient Egyptians,
Mhm.
and they've been uploaded very recently. It's a person that has some album on Getty Images, and he has some very nice pictures from different tombs.
Mhm.
Now, there's that one behind me that's to be confirmed. Apparently, it is in the tomb of Amenhotep III, but for strange reason, we don't have anything from the tomb of Amenhotep III, and he was one of the most powerful ruler of Kemet.
Mhm.
So there might be a lot of things that they don't want us to see. But there's another one that I had on my as my background picture, which is from the Louvre Museum, and it looks similar, but just not as dark. So personally, I know that we have the visual evidence. Now we have some other dudes. You might have heard of one of them who says that ancient Egyptians were Caucasians. So you haven't heard about that guy, have you?
Um, when you there are so many people who say that.
Well, okay, but I'd rather not say his name. If you haven't heard about him, then you're not missing on anything. But
Okay.
we kind of hear everything and anything at the same time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, have you heard about Brother Reggie?
No. Oh no.
Okay,
Oh,
well.
Reggie. Reggie, is he the one who used to call on your show, like Reggie Radio or whatever his name is?
Oh no, that's Radio One. No,
Oh,
no,
okay.
Reggie is somebody else. He's a guy who say he's been there for 30 years. He worked with Dr. Ben, Dr. Clark, and
Mhm.
he knows all the grades. You know what I'm saying? But he was applauding, that guy who says that the ancient Egyptians were Caucasians. He was literally there on Smash Rockwell's YouTube program. That guy said that the ancient Egyptians were Caucasian from pre-dynastic time until today. He said that the modern Egyptians are the ancient Egyptians, and the guy just gave him kudos. You know what I'm saying? Thinking that I was wrong when I talked about Shekonta Diop and the melanin test. But anyways, if you don't know what I'm talking about,
There's
it's
there's
fine.
plenty, but look, I mean, the thing is that genetics. The thing about genetics is that you can recreate a population using a genetic sample of, let's say, like 800, n equals 800 or something. If you have a representative sample and you can prove that that sample is representative, and if that sample is not representative, then why don't you just take a whole bunch of samples and take a sample of samples, and then you can get a picture, right? That's hard to do with ancient DNA because these bodies aren't always preserved. The DNA can become contaminated. There are grave robbers. Like it's super hard to do for ancient Egypt, which is why, like,
But
when
bro, what I'm trying to say is, like, when you see this painting, do we need any DNA survey or
But you're talking about like a logical, rational person, right? Like when you're arguing about the race, race in ancient Egypt, you're going to be dealing with people who are extremely, profoundly, irrationally racist,
Yeah,
and they
but
will tell you that
but
that
you
man behind you is not a black man. He is just
well,
what
that's
is it called, a Saeed, right? He's just
yeah.
a really dark Arab.
Yeah, so some
You
people
know,
might try to say that, but the strange thing is that you even have some Egyptologists who talked about the Nefertiti bust, which is in Berlin, in Germany, and they would say that it is her, that it is Nefertiti, and everybody in their mama have been saying that it is anonymous. So sometimes people, they have qualification, they have formal training, but yet they will push something that is not scientific. If it is anonymous, why and how could we say this is Nefertiti? And besides, we have several depictions of Nefertiti. I have shown some. We have some from the Ashmolean Museum. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be a reason why they keep pushing that Nefertiti bust.
yeah, I think when it comes to arguing about the looks, right? Because 18th dynasty, there's no question. 18th dynasty. If there's a book called X-Raying the Pharaohs, by Harris and E. Weeks, and they look at the mummies of the 18th dynasty and they say, hey, look, they show strong similarities to Nubians. Frank J. Yorko, who argues that modern Egyptians are essentially the ancient Egyptians with admixture, right? Um, he says, hey, the 18th dynasty, they definitely came from the south, and they would have looked very similar to Nubians, right? Um, but like, even given that, the whole argument about how people look, the only thing they'll do is they'll give you a picture of Rahotep. They'll give you a picture of the seated
Yeah, Rahul Deb and his
you know,
wife. Yeah.
or they'll just go picture by picture and picture and picture, and it's just like, okay, so then like let's go back to the actual Egyptology and what actual Egyptologists are talking about. Let's look at, like, for example, uh, I think it's climatologists. I forget the exact term, but the people who entered Egypt and became Egyptians, they entered from northeast Sudan or northwest Sudan. A lot of evidence points to that. There were also people who entered Egypt from North Africa. And then there was some genetic influence from the Levant. No one can deny that. But the people of southern Egypt, right? And the people of northern Sudan are genetic continuity. The Nile is not a genetic barrier. In fact, there was more gene flow from the south of Egypt, right, going into Egypt than there was the other way around. And that has been shown like genetically. And so the whole debate around this is stupid. It's a really stupid debate. At a certain point, it just becomes like, okay, people are going to believe what they want to believe, but I think that the damage that Egyptology and historians have done is almost irreversible, right? And like the only way that you're going to get people like Asar Imhotep and all the other pseudo people into line is to have serious black academics who, on the one hand, are going to refute Eurocentrism, but also this babble, like because the word Afrocentric
No,
has a
but
bad.
we do have serious people.
No, we
Black,
do, we do.
yeah, like Theophilo Benga has been doing it for the longest. He was with Diop in 1974. He proposed the Negro Egyptian. Dr. Obade Campbell, PhD in linguistics, is working on, doing reconstruction in order to establish the Negro Egyptian. Ned Neb also is working with Dr. Obade Campbell and Dr. Nassi Sati out of Khartoum. He has this goal as well, and Dr. Sandro Kaposhishi, I'm not sure if he's part of the Abibitumi team, but we'll see. We will have some confirmation, somewhere along the line. But on a linguistic tip, they are continuing the work of Diop and Obenga. But like you said, I agree. Everybody will believe what they want to believe because there was still a shift. Because first, like Egyptologists, historians in general used to talk about some white race in Egypt, white Caucasian race, well, and now it's like okay, it was multicultural, Mediterranean Africans, you know what I'm saying, and we
You
have
can't
some
really
black
talk
pharaohs
about
anyway. We
it.
had the 25th dynasty, so that's like, oh, it's systematic, but we cannot say they were white, we cannot say they were black, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, okay, it is what it is, but there was a little shift anyway. But I mean, yeah, what more can I say? But the things that the black community or so-called conscious community is the only community where pseudos get some play. But the Simon fake dude, uh he's going through a very difficult transition because for years he was hyped up, what I'm saying? People were impressed. Uh and now people don't really give him the time of the day, if you go on Amazon and look at their book about the a contribution to the place name Kemet. It has four. Well, when I went, a few days ago on Amazon, there was four reviews, and 11 evaluations or ratings, which means that it is safe to say that at least 11 copies were sold. You know, some people will buy the book and not, make a rating. You know what I'm saying? But it's just clear that the sales haven't been great. And when people see that there's a book of less than 100 pages, they will not necessarily. I mean, let me just show you. Let me just show you. Let me show it's a contribution to. There it is. This is just so that people can understand. Now, that. So there it is. The book was released in 2019. You can see it's 92 pages. Now look at the description here of the book. The present volume is a collection of essays that seek to provide some answers to a long-standing debate in Egyptology concerning the meaning, history, and application of one of the many names of ancient Egypt, i.e., Kemet. One sentence description. You know what I'm saying? That's quite rare. You know, and if you go down, well, it looks like there was a fifth review ever since because it's. Oh no, that's the okay. Let's have a look. See all reviews. One, two, three, four reviews. You see, and the ratings. I can't remember where it is, but oh, there it is. If I go back, 11 global ratings. You see, so four written reviews, 11 rating. So it's safe to say that they sold at least 11 copies. So 11 copies. So it's like they're struggling. They're struggling. They're struggling, and it is what it is. That's all I would say.
No, I
Now,
mean
the
that's
fight
good.
doctor wrote. The fight doctor wrote the term Bantu was invented by Europeans and is essentially meaningless. Well, there's so many terms that we use that were invented by Europeans. Egypt, that's it's not really invented by Europeans. It derives from Aegyptos, which derives from Hut Capital.
Greek.
But there's so many terms that we use that were invented by Europeans anyway. Just like some terms we use, like Ibani, it derives from the Menonecha, Hebeni, and there's other words as well. So I wouldn't say it's meaningless. I wouldn't say the word Bantu is meaningless. Just like some people argue that us calling ourselves African or calling the motherland or the continent Africa is wrong because it was termed after some Europeans. I don't think it's accurate to say that because even more, there are some Maori, which is from the Greek. You know what I'm saying? So we shouldn't have that double standard.
Yeah,
But
with
feel free,
Bantu,
Hassan.
though, people think of Bantu as synonymous with black, and that's when it gets weird when you think of Bantu as a race. When
Well,
people
it is synonymous with black, isn't it?
No, I don't think so.
So do we
Um,
have white Bantu people?
well, I think that Ethiopians were called black, and Sudanese people were called black, and they're not Bantu.
Yeah, but how many non-black Bantu do we have? How many white Bantu do we have?
Okay, so being Bantu implies that someone is black, but being black
Yes,
does not imply someone is Bantu. So they're not synonyms, is what I'm trying to say.
I understand you. I understand you. Yes,
Yeah.
I understand.
So, but like in some people's minds, they are. And so, if you say that the ancient Egyptians were Northeast African peoples consistent with, I guess people, I would say consistent with the people you see in northern Sudan today, they would be similar to the ancient Egyptians. I think Nubians in the south of Egypt today, quote unquote Nubians, right, would be consistent with Egyptians in the ancient past. And they'll say like, no, that's not good enough for me to compare ancient Egyptians to Ethiopians or Cushites or anything like that. They need to be West African, Niger, Congo, ARB, Bantu, because that is what the true Negro is. And that is a huge debate, or rather was a huge historical debate in Egyptology, is that like if we can separate these people, if we can say that they're African, but they're not the true Negro, they're Hamites, then we have something going. And some people don't understand that when they're trying to argue that these people are Bantu and the true Negro, they're already accepting the framework of Europeans, right? That they invented just 200, 300 years ago about what it means to be black.
But
That's the new concept.
I don't think Egyptologists argue that the ancient Egyptians were Hamites. I don't even think they talk about
Yeah,
Hamites.
Hamitic not today, but in the past,
Oh,
there's
probably. Yeah,
Hamitic hypothesis.
I entered the field. I'm studying Egyptology at a university, and in one of the notes, it says, and I'm paraphrasing, but it says something to the effect of, and I might still have it open up, that anything written before the 20th century should be taken, and that's me paraphrasing, with a grain of salt. You know what I'm saying? So whatever they wrote back then, um,
No, toss it out. Sure, sure, but people are still responding to that when they're arguing about race in ancient Egypt. Like it's still important for the historiography to understand like how people wrote about Egypt historically, and it was always through a racial lens. It was always to justify
well, it's true. It's
racism.
true. Yeah, there are a lot of bias. I mean, Champollion himself, he was shocked. Nobody says that Champollion is Afrocentric, African centered or Afrocentric, but Champollion described the ancient Egyptians as black. He described when he went to the tombs how um, the ancient Egyptians and Nubians were portrayed the same, which could not be otherwise. And when he talked about what he described as Indo-Europeans, he talked about people with tattoos. He said real savages. That's what he wrote. And he said, I'm ashamed to say, but that's us. But at least he shows how far we have gone. You know what I'm saying? So he labeled the white skinned people as savages, real savages. You know what I'm saying? But if a black person says that, oh, he's African centered, he's anti-white, blah 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 blah. But Champollion, who's very well respected, for known as the one who deciphered the Medinetia, that's what he said when he went to the tombs. So it was a real shock because they had their narratives, of this special white skinned race living in Egypt, that built that civilization, and then, somehow, some way, kind of disappeared. Or I mean, there are so many hypotheses, and Diop went at great length at quoting those people and the weird claims and hypotheses that they had. But that's what was law back then. So I mean, this thing is oh, the brother's gone. Maybe he lost connection, or maybe he was tired. I don't know. But I'll see if he comes back, and then I guess I can wrap this up, unless somebody else want to call and get on the platform. It's been 3 hours and 14 minutes. We have 12 people in attendance. How many lives do we have? Now they lied to you. For the record, I'm going to share the link. I don't think I share the link in the chat. So you can see the so-called kinky here. What I'm saying? Those people say anything, man. Over the years, that's all it's been. It's conscious community. Oh, Hassan is back.
Yeah, I clicked off. Oh, where's my camera? Okay, yeah, I clicked off accidentally. I was trying to load something up because I'm not sure it was Paul Leon, but there was some French historian who talked about the Copts, because when people want to prove that the ancient Egyptians,
Yeah, I think it's called Volney.
Okay.
I think.
Remarked about the Copts because when people
when he said, "Oh, this is the same race of people who now, is like subjugated, like our slave, and it's from them that we get mathematics and so on." Is that quote you're talking about?
No. I've heard that quote before too, but this is a French historian talking about how the Copts are mixed. They're mixed, just like modern day Egyptians. I don't know why anyone would use them as an example. I'll send it to you. Can I actually screen share? Hold on, let me screen share.
Of course you can. Yes, you can. Do you know how to do it?
I'm gonna try. I'm just gonna hope. Okay.
Do you see the share button at the?
Yeah, I'm just gonna try to share a window. Let's see.
Is it from the internet, or is it like a some program on your?
It's a paper. It's a paper that you can read. Can you see it now?
But no, I don't see anything sharing. But that paper, is it like a? Is it a PDF you're trying to open, or is it a web page?
It's a link. Let me send you the link actually.
Okay, you can send it to me. You know the private chat, right? Can you see it on the right? On the right, it says private chat.
I see private chat. Yeah, I'm in it right now.
And then if you send it there, I get it. So.
Yeah. So basically, this paper, it looks at the Northeast African genomes, and it finds that modern Egyptians are some sort of Northeast African population that was mixed recently. Recently, with outsiders. No, actually, this paper argues that that admixture isn't recent. There are other papers who talk about the Arab conquest and its genetic impact. This paper really doesn't go into that. It does acknowledge it, however. But essentially, they look at the Copts and they look at Egyptians and they say, hey, look, Copts and Egyptians should genetically be the same. And it's true, they are. And both Copts and Egyptians have, in this paper at least, 69 to 70% European admixture, right? The paper uses Europeans as a model, but likely it's not European ancestry. It's likely how can I say this academically? It's likely ancestry that derives from the Arab conquest, whether that be Levantine Bedouin DNA or like Qatari DNA. So like sometimes genetically you can't tell the difference between Europeans and Arabs depending on how many sample populations you have, right? So if you have 5 sample populations, K equals 5, then yeah, you can tell the difference. But if K equals 2, 3, it's harder to differentiate. Nevertheless, it shows that there was admixture, especially all the way down to Sudan, dated to around the Arab conquest and to when certain.
Yeah, they talk about that just here. It said we estimate the admixture in current day Sudanese Arab population to about 700 years ago, coinciding with the fall of Dongola in 1315/1316 AD. A wave of admixture that reached the Darfurian / Kordofanian population some 400-200 years ago. But feel free, son. You're muted, brother.
Yeah, they deny this. They deny this. I've seen so many papers that sort of confirm. Now, people, the technique that they use here is like an F3 statistic, and they use linkage disequilibriums. It's all complex genetic stuff. But when the genetics say, "Hey, these people were Levantine and Arab and all of this," they never question the genetics. When the genetics talks about current admixture, for some reason they just doubt it, and they no longer, really believe in science. There's another paper called "Tracing Modern Routes of Humans Out of Africa." Let me send you the link towards it. Link to it, right? But essentially, they try to mask this.
Can you please share it in the chat directly?
Oh yeah, I can share it in the comments.
Yeah, the comments. Yes.
Let me see. It's not allowing me to make a comment actually for some reason. I can share it in the private chat.
Okay, go ahead.
But yeah, essentially in this paper, they find that hey, modern Egyptians have 70 to 80%, out of Africa admixture, and they date the midpoint of that admixture to about 1400. So that means that it started in 14th century, which is 1300. So that means that that's the midpoint, which means it started in 600 AD, around the time of the Arab conquest of Egypt, and it's gone on until today. And so they look at Egyptian genomes. Once you take out the DNA that came from that conquest, they share 85% of their haplotypes with West and East Africans, such as Ethiopians. And then the genetic distance between ancient Egyptians, according to this at least, right? And when I say ancient, I mean starting before 600 AD. I'm not meaning 4,000 years ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
But according to their DNA, starting from 600 AD, they would have been closer to Ethiopians than West Africans, but closer to both by far than to other out of Africans. So the distance between them and West Africans would be about 20,000 years, which is actually less than the distance between West Africans and East Africans. And then the distance between them and Ethiopians is obviously less than that. But essentially what it says is like, hey, there's a genetic component, even in modern Egyptians today, that shows that they were African. And there's other studies about populations that exist in Egypt today that show that they have a unique Northeast African genetic component. And it's just so bizarre that people, if you want to argue that these people weren't black or they weren't African, argue that they were North African. Go ahead. Argue that they were Berber, Amazigh. Go ahead and fight that fight. They don't want to do that because when you look at North Africans in general, you can't distinguish between North Africans and Arabs. Genetically, they have the same profile. And when I say Arab, I mean people who identify as Arab and people who identify as Berber. You can't tell the difference between the two. You can't. And that's because of the Arab conquest and all that gene flow that came into North Africa as a result of it. And so what you actually find in different genetic studies is that Egyptians have the least amount of indigenous quote unquote indigenous, 12,000 years ago from a back migration. They have the least amount of that DNA in comparison to people from Morocco who are Berber. And they have the most DNA from Arabs and Levantine Bedouins as compared. So there's a whole cline of DNA from the east of North Africa, Egypt, to the western part of North Africa, that the amount of North African DNA increases, indigenous North African DNA increases. And then as you go from west to east, the amount of Arab DNA decreases. So instead of arguing that these people were ancient North Africans, they, like the Libyans are, as depicted by the Egyptians, they somehow argue that no, they would have had more in common with people from the Levant. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we hear all sorts of things, but Muslim Muhammad, for example, he argues that um, people left Africa and went to Asia, mainly Arabia. Then they returned to Africa, and that's when they built all these civilizations. So
Yeah. So what's crazy is that there are I gotta find this paper, but there's this book and they go into sort of like, you know, I don't think many Egyptologists would deny that the people closest culturally to the Egyptians were Nubians, and that should be no surprise because they're right next to each other. They're literally. There's
Well,
no magical.
one thing they will say is like, when people talk about the similarity, they will say the Nubians were Egyptianized. You know what I'm saying? So, I
Right.
mean,
So the thing is,
yeah,
the thing is, Bruce Williams, he goes into this question. I think I have it here somewhere. Um, about what is it called? Group A. Yes, Group A. So Nubian Group A is very similar to Egyptians, right? And he says this is a book called the A Group Royal Cemetery, and he says, the fragments
I'm
of
sorry. Let me. Have you studied genetics
genetics. No,
Yes,
I'm not a geneticist. I have no
or
degree in genetics.
DNA or anything like that?
I read the papers. I read the papers and the explanations of the science behind it, so I understand it. But I'm not a
Okay.
geneticist. I don't have any degree in genetics at all.
Mm. Oh,
No.
that's not what I was asking. I was just asking if you kind of studied it. But yeah, feel free. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah. So when people make these genetic arguments, they're based off of this idea of, how like when you get brown eyes and you have like blonde hair, those two things aren't connected, right? Like just because someone has blonde hair, it doesn't usually mean it's more likely that they're going to have blue eyes or brown eyes. It doesn't tell you anything, right? That's not always true. Sometimes blue eyes and blonde eyes are inherited together for certain populations, okay? And so what they call that is linkage disequilibrium, which means that there's some the when it's in a state of equilibrium, it should just be flip a dice, right? Like it could go either way. But when there's a disequilibrium, having blonde hair tells me that it's more likely that you're going to have blue eyes. So for certain populations, there are certain genes or SNPs that do have this disequilibrium. And because populations are always mixing with one another, this one population, some random guy in this population, some other random woman in this population, they have a baby, right? There's going to be genetic changes in that population due to genetic drift. People live in different places, whatever, right? But because they're always mating with one another, they're like that sort of linkage disequilibrium, that sort of trait connecting blonde hair and blue eyes is going to say the same within that population. But when you introduce another population, it isn't. Mixing with a different population is going to change that. And so you can use that information to date how long ago an admixture event is. And so that's the science behind what they're doing to say this is when the Arab admixture came in. It's not perfect as with all scientific things, right? There's a margin of error. Certain systems or programs to calculate these things have biases and whatnot. What a lot of people tend to do is they want to ignore modern genetic studies on modern populations, right? And just say, well, when we have a DNA, ancient DNA from people, that's what we should pay attention to. Which you can, it's fine. It's just if Shaka, if I pulled you and you're a student of Egyptology, right? And I said, well, Egyptologists generally believe that the ancient Egyptians were black, right? Well, that's sure he studies Egyptology, but like, is Shaka representative? Is that a big enough sample size? You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
people like to throw out all sort of statistical analysis and data to say,
Mm.
hey, we found this one mummy in the north of Egypt in 100 AD, and therefore now they're all like this guy. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
very unserious debate. It's very much unserious. But basically, what I was going to say is Bruce Williams says that the materials that you find in Nubian Group A are local. So all of the materials that they used to build these pots and all of these artifacts came from that exact location. It couldn't have been transplanted from Egypt. So the fact that they're similar points to like long-standing cultural similarities and that they came from a common sort of cultural substratum versus, hey, this is a transplant from Egypt. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. Well, thanks a lot for calling in for the contribution. Thanks
Alrighty.
for the links. I've placed them in the chat. I'm gonna really put an end to it because it's like 1 a.m. right now.
All
And
right.
I've been live streaming for 3 hours and 28 minutes. But feel free to make your closing remarks, and I will make my closing remarks as well.
Yeah, I think that obviously the pseudo people are terrible. They make the term Afrocentrism seem bad. Every time you come across a modern Egyptian, they're like, "You're an Afrocentrist, right?" But Egypt is in Africa, so of course, or you should want an Afrocentrist to study an African civilization if Egypt is in Africa, right? But I think that they're a problem, but the bigger problem obviously is the academics who peddle in basically like racist pseudoscience around Egypt. And I'll leave it there. Thanks for having me, Shaka.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks again for calling. So, brothers and sisters, we'll put an end to this live stream. It's been 3 hours and 29 minutes. I'm gonna have the outro, which lasts about 5 minutes actually. I thought it was a bit longer. So in total, it will be 3 hours and 35 minutes. Stay safe, stay healthy, and if I'm allowed to by the nature, I'll definitely holler back at you. For those who want to learn about the nature, I've been giving classes for a few years, so feel free. You have my email address in the description of the video. If you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Hotep.
Now, for the record, for those who don't know, I'm giving Medu Nature classes. And here, that's the flyer. Okay? So, those who are interested, feel free to holler at me. If you're not interested, it's cool. But I recommend that everybody who has not yet seen the video, Kemet and Ma'at, Before Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, then watch it. It has about 300,000 views and really deserves to have a lot more.
I just want to let everyone know who's listening in now and who's going to listen to this stream in the future. I just had my first Meta Nature class by Brother Shaka today, and I've had other Meta Nature lessons by other teachers, and I can tell you right now, the brother is the best in the game. He is that was one of the best classes I've ever had ever. So if you're interested in learning the Meta Nature, if you're interested in getting the basics of it, Brother Shaka is an awesome teacher. Get with him, and it's extremely affordable. This brother is giving us his time and his skills, and he's basically giving it away. I mean, I just consider it a donation. You know what I'm saying? So if anybody's interested in learning the Meta Nature, get with this brother right here. He's an awesome, awesome, awesome teacher. And I'll end with that.
Hotep Senu, Hena Senut. This is Julie, also known as Servant of Yah, and I'm currently taking the Medu Nature classes with Brother Shaka, and it has been an amazing experience. Only 2 lessons so far, and I feel like I've been taking the classes for months, just with the how in depth he goes into the vocabulary words, the construction of the language, the grammar. It's been immeasurable, the experience. And one thing that comes across, hands down, is his extreme passion for teaching this to anyone who is willing to learn and has an interest in learning. So I highly suggest, if you are interested, even a minimal interest, that you subscribe to the classes with Brother Shaka. It's such a nominal amount for how much you get. I know, like, our last class was over 2.5 hours. It felt like 2 minutes, but because that's how involved you are in what he's teaching and how he teaches and how compassionate he is about what he teaches. Also with sharing materials free of charge, no question, no doubt. It's just what he does. He doesn't have to, but he does. And so I just wanted to give a short testimonial about the class and the effectiveness of the class, and all of that is attested to how studied Brother Shaka is. So I highly recommend anyone with a minimal interest that you do sign up for the Medu Nature class. Hotep.
Don't forget to subscribe to my channel, which is Ma'at Forever. Don't forget to watch the video entitled Kemet and Ma'at. Don't forget to share Kemet and Ma'at on my channel on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, or other social media that you use. Email, text messages, you name it. Those who wish to donate can do so on paypal.me/ma'atforever.